he called up Americans. Now, Americans after speaking to him, called up Minister Jaishankar. And Mr. Jaishankar again stated India's position. No talk of trade, no talk of mediation. Minister Jaishankar said that if they will stop firing, we will stop firing. So perhaps that was told to Marco Rubio. Now, what Marco Rubio told Ishaq Dar or what Ishaq Dar is claiming, perhaps, it's something which they are saying. There's nobody to corroborate what they are
and
saying.
Absolutely, Siddhant, and he's twisting the timeline altogether. The statement that has been made by the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, really claims that he had a word with Marco Rubio only after he had spoken with the External Affairs Minister in India. A statement which is absolutely false. It is a propaganda which Pakistan is mastering so far, but India has been known to diss and will still continue to call out for the fake news attempt. My colleague Payal Mehta is also with us on the broadcast. Payal, twisting the timeline as if that were not enough, they are completely turning it around and claiming that it is India who wanted the ceasefire, not the other way around.
For the last 7 to 10 days, what has the government officials been doing? They've only been busting Pakistan's fake news factory, essentially, because Pakistan has lied about everything, right? From, putting out, forged documents to putting out forged pictures and, trying to present a picture before the people that they had actually harmed India in a big way and had destroyed military assets as well. None of this is really true. After the fact saying that it captured, India's pilot alive and all of that. This is the dirty design of Pakistan. This is something which Pakistan has been an expert with, and Great lies well exposed as well. What India has been able to do, what India really has, India has shown it in proof. India has shown where the exact precise strikes really happened. And of course, why Pakistan is, of course, a terror state is also very well stated. Where in the world would you see a terrorist being buried? And along with that, a state funeral being given to them in the presence of the army and in the presence of the government as well. So that's of course Pakistan's true face, which really lies exposed. And there's been a lot of change as far as Donald Trump's attitude also over the entire matter is concerned. Siddhant, our colleague, was just reporting yesterday how Donald Trump yesterday when he spoke said that he helped both India and Pakistan instead of saying intervene, because India has always been of the stand that they do not need anybody's intervention on bilateral issues as well. But currently, we do not have any bilateral engagements with Pakistan. And Pakistan, if they ever want to speak to us, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said it in as many words, if they ever decide to speak to Pakistan, it will be on their terms and conditions. And the terms are to speak about terror and how Pakistan is bringing in terror into India. And of course, to speak about the PoK, which remains the unfinished agenda as far as the BJP government is really concerned, is being part of the manifesto that every inch of Kashmir is ours, and PoK will be ours soon.
Right, Payal, do stay on with us. Back home, there is a amount of politicking that is only growing, and this political storm is brewing over US President Donald Trump's claims of mediating that ceasefire between India and Pakistan. The political parties here, particularly the opposition, has questioned whether India did agree to third-party mediation on the Kashmir issue. This is following Trump's statements claiming that he pressured both India and Pakistan into accepting a ceasefire by threatening trade cuts. However, India has firmly denied Donald Trump's assertions. The government maintains that the ceasefire understanding was reached only after talks between the Director Generals of Military Operations of India and Pakistan without US intervention. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, while addressing the nation, also said that Pakistan initiated contact with India and sought the ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, opposition leaders, however, have called for a special session of the parliament to discuss not only this particular issue, but also the recent Pahalgam attack and Operation Sindoor.
On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons.
हमारे सैन्य ठिकानों को निशाना बनाया, लेकिन इसमें भी पाकिस्तान खुद बेनकाब हो गया। पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया। 10 मई की दोपहर को पाकिस्तानी सेना ने हमारे डीजीएमओ को संपर्क किया। तब तक हम आतंकवाद के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बड़े पैमाने पर तबाह कर चुके हैं। हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है।
हमने प्रधानमंत्री का वक्तव्य सुना और उनके वक्तव्य से कुछ मिनटों पहले अमेरिकी राष्ट्रपति डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का भी वक्तव्य सुना, जिसने पूरे देश को बहुत आश्चर्यचकित भी कर दिया, व्यथित भी कर दिया। इस देश में सिंदूर बेशक कीमती माना जाता है, उसके साथ व्यापार की बात नहीं हो सकती। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने जो व्यापार का शब्द इस्तेमाल किया कि व्यापार की वजह से मैं इन दोनों को रोक पाया हूं, यह मुझे लगता है बहुत चौंकाने वाला भी है और बहुत दुखी करने वाला भी है। इस पे हम उम्मीद करते थे प्रधानमंत्री कोई वक्तव्य देंगे, कोई सफाई देंगे, कोई स्पष्टीकरण देंगे, कोई जवाब देंगे। नहीं हुआ। सामरिक दृष्टि से हमने क्या खोया, क्या पाया, उस पर हमें चर्चा करनी चाहिए और आगे एक सामूहिक संकल्प बनाकर पूरे विश्व को दिखाना चाहिए कि हिंदुस्तान एक आवाज में बात कर रहा है।
Terrorism has no place in a civilized world now. Terrorism has to be stopped. Somehow terrorists should be eliminated. Donald Trump claims that he had discussed with both the governments to stop war. And the Prime Minister had not said anything about that. The government had taken steps to eliminate terrorists. We appreciate and we are with the government of India.
And Payal continues to be with us. Payal, this politicking isn't stopping. There is going to be a special session today. What are the opposition parties planning on achieving with the kind of attack that they are leveling, allegations that they are leveling against the centre? Now that the government has come on record, even the Prime Minister with that address has underlined that there was no US intervention.
Well, absolutely. The Prime Minister has not named the US, but the Prime Minister has given the message loud and clear, Griha, saying that anybody who wants to us to speak to Pakistan should know that we will speak to Pakistan only on our own terms and conditions. The Prime Minister, in fact, highlighting and telling the people of the country that the Pakistan approached us, that DGMO really approached us first. So it was, of course, Pakistan's initiative to approach us. We were not going to back out because we were not going to, attack them in the first place if they did not needle us, if they did not try to attack our civilians as well. Pakistan has been shown its place. Essentially, that's what the Prime Minister's big message has been to the country yesterday. How Donald Trump says what Donald Trump says, you can't really, frankly speaking, I can't put words on you and me. I can't put words in his mouth as well. He's come down from a time when he said that he mediated to a time saying that I helped both these countries as well. Of course, Donald Trump is known to make multiple statements at multiple times and, change his own statements time and again as well. But as far as India is concerned, of course, we've seen a united front so far. That's something which the Prime Minister even referred to, that all political parties also came in together as well. And the government is hoping that the opposition parties do not fall to any design of the US or any other country or any other matter for that fact. And they should just trust what is being officially said and what officially is being is conveyed and convened by the government of India.
Right, Payal. Thank you so much for that. We also have Pallavi Ghosh join us on the broadcast. Pallavi, has there been a confirmation on this special session that's been requested of the government by the opposition?
No, none at all. But we also have to understand that the India bloc, Griha, also stands divided on this entire issue. While both Mr. Kharge and Rahul Gandhi have written a letter to the Prime Minister asking for an urgent special session, not everyone in the India bloc seems to be on the same page. And Mr. Pawar has made that very clear that this will not be right from the point of view of security. It's better to have an all-party meeting. See, the problem is that was the first reaction which really came in from the BJP to Mr. Kharge and Rahul Gandhi's letter. Griha, what happens in the case of a special session of parliament, all nines will be out. It is going to be confrontationist, it's going to be combative, and all the proceedings of the House are being. And this is where the problem begins. We got the concern within BJP, something which was expressed by Mr. Pawar also, that what will essentially happen is that the Pakistan will get emboldened. Pakistan will say that your own political class seems to be divided, and therefore, at this point of time, I don't think the government can afford to have a special session.
Pallavi, thank you so much for that. Let's take a look at some more reactions coming in.
Congress government never even retaliated after 26/11. It was only Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji in 2019 who removed the most favored nation status of Pakistan, and the Congress didn't do that in 2008. Now we see how the Prime Minister has decisively combated terrorism, and the Prime Minister Modi ji has always had a very commanding forward policy in dealing with terrorism, be it how we responded, the surgical strikes in 2016 or Balakot airstrikes in 2019 and now Operation Sindoor, one of India's, greatest military victories. The Prime Minister's speech yesterday touched a chord with every Indian, and especially in the way in which he saluted our brave men and women in uniform.
The issue which arises now is, it's very clear as far as our international affairs are concerned, external affairs are concerned, it's very clear between India and Pakistan, there should not be any third mediator as far as Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir issue is concerned. It's all along we have been following it right from 1972 when Mrs. Indira Gandhi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto signed a similar agreement saying that no third party have any role between Pakistan and India. Now the intervention of American President Mr. Trump, it clearly says that somewhere we have broken the agreement what we had signed in 1972. It's not an objections. The entire Congress party as a working committee had passed a resolution standing firmly with the government and with the armed forces to fight and teach a lessons to Pakistan. And entire opposition parties stood with the Prime Minister and the government and the armed forces to teach a lessons to Pakistan. But unfortunately, Prime Minister did not attend the all-party meeting.
नहीं, स्पेशल सेशन ऑफ पार्लियामेंट के उसके लिए तो कॉल लेना पड़ेगा सरकार को, कब वो बुलाती है, कब उसके लिए सही समय होता है वो निर्धारित सरकार करेगी। फिलहाल दोनों देशों के बीच में तनाव कम हुआ है लेकिन ख़त्म नहीं हुआ है, तो ये समय सेना का मनोबल बढ़ाने का है, ये समय पूरे स्ट्रैटेजिक प्लानिंग करने का है। जब ये सेशन बुलाने की बात होगी तो सरकार उचित समय पर उचित निर्णय लेगी। फिलहाल कॉशियस रहने का समय है।
बात ऐसी है जहाँ से विशेष पार्लियामेंट का हम तो इसके खिलाफ नहीं, मगर ये सेंसिटिव इशू है, इस बारे में डेप्थ डिस्कशन सीरियस इशू है तो सदन में देना मुश्किल होता है। मिनिस्टर को भी सब डिस्कस करना इतना आसान नहीं, तो फायदे की बात नहीं है। सेशन बुलाना हो तो बुलाइए, और सेशन से ज़्यादा लाभ हम आपस में बैठेंगे तो होगा।
On that note, we are going into a very short break. News and updates continue on the broadcast. Stay tuned for more.
Brought to you by
Indigo and Air India announced the cancellation of all flights 2 and 4 from 9 airports across North and West India for today. And the affected airports include Jammu, Amritsar, Chandigarh, Leh, Srinagar, Jodhpur, Jamnagar, Bhuj and Rajkot. Now, the airline cited renewed safety concerns as the primary reason for this abrupt suspension of services. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastav on this broadcast. Anvit, what is the reason being cited for the suspension of the services?
See, recently, as we know, all 32 airports had been reopened for civil operations. But following the latest developments and certain drone sightings last night, immediately Amritsar airport was shut for civil operations for a few hours. It was initially said to be a temporarily shut. However, the civil operations have been suspended for an extended period And the airlines have now come up with a revised advisory, and like Air India has issued an advisory saying that in view of the latest developments and keeping your safety in mind, flights to from Jammu, Leh, Jodhpur, Amritsar, Bhuj, Jamnagar, Chandigarh, and Rajkot, they have said stand cancelled till May 13. So this has been extended till today. But the situation is being monitored. Similarly, other airlines like Indigo, Akasha, and many others have also. SpiceJet also has come up with the advisories for passengers. They are also saying that keep monitoring real flight timings for other destinations as well, because these airports that are now again scheduled civil operations may also affect flights to other directions. But they have said that the further extended suspension is only for today. Situation is being monitored. It was done last night following some drone sightings, because there were alerts issued that there could be some potential threat. Following that, this has been done, but it is only for today. If required, this will be further extended. But we are hopeful that, like earlier, 32 airports were open for civil operations. This time around, after 13, there should not be such situation prevailing.
And also we are seeing at this moment that it is in fact Indigo and Air India who have come up with statement. What about the other domestic flights? Have they also been come up with any sort of official statement at this point?
See, they have been conveyed the same. Not all flights have, regular connectivity to these locations up north, but those who have, they are issuing advisories, and they have been informed to make sure that no passenger books fly to these destinations, and also compensate the passengers whose flights have been cancelled. So these information have been passed on to the airlines. All of them will be coming shortly with the guidelines as well.
Welcome back. We're now getting some important piece of breaking news now, as India has proposed to impose retaliatory duties under the World Trade Organization norms against United States of America over American tariffs on steel and aluminium in the name of safeguard measures. An important update there where we are learning that India has maintained that these measures that were taken by US were not consistent with General Agreement on Trade and Tariff 1994 firstly, and also under agreement on safeguards. So a retaliatory measure that has been put in place by India. They have made the WTO aware and of the proposal to impose retaliatory duties under the WTO norms against US over American tariffs on steel and aluminium, which were done in the name of safeguard measures. Now, there was a communication that was also arrived at by the WTO where they claimed that the safeguard measures would affect $7.6 billion of imports into the US of the relevant products originating in India. Important piece of news information. My colleague Pallavi is with us on the broadcast. Pallavi, a retaliatory measure by India. Of course, this is coming in after a lot of deliberations. Tell us more.
That's right. And there's been a lot of backroom negotiations and talks which have taken place with India suggesting that, US would understand and it could be a mutual one. But we also have to understand a lot of things have changed at this point of time. And clearly in the backdrop of what happened between India and Pakistan, some of the comments which are coming in from Donald Trump himself, and also the insinuation coming in from opposition parties that India is going to bend backwards and give lots of sops to America as far as the trade tariff agreement is concerned. So here, I think the messaging which is going in from India is very clear-cut, that India is not going to buckle under any pressure. We have been reporting on this. We have a two-pronged strategy. While we are already engaging with America, on the other hand, we are looking at alternative countries, alternative routes as far as trade are concerned, and countries who are as badly hit as a trade tariff like China was at some point of time. We are looking at them as markets and exports and imports, and also our Atmanirbhar policy, so that we cut down on our imports. Also, the cardinal rule which India is adopting is that at least our agricultural sector should not be affected. If for that we have to impose more tariff, then so be it. But India's, individuality, so to say, is not going to be compromised. So there could be an increase in tariffs, restrictions, both from both the sides, where India is going to now increase those tariff restrictions and the tariff also, which of course will invite a similar response coming in from America.
Absolutely, Pallavi. Thank you so much. So, retaliatory measures by India. We are possibly looking at more reciprocal tariffs also for steel and aluminium products that are imported in turn by India from the United States. Let's see what happens to this big announcement. But right now, we're going to a very short break.
Geo Home.
Indigo and Air India announced the cancellation of all flights 2 and 4 from 9 airports across North and West India for today. And the affected airports include Jammu, Amritsar, Chandigarh, Leh, Srinagar, Jodhpur, Jamnagar, Bhuj and Rajkot. Now, the airline cited renewed safety concerns as the primary reason for this abrupt suspension of services. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastav on this broadcast. Anvit, what is the reason being cited for the suspension of the services?
So recently, as we know, all 32 airports had been reopened for civil operations. But following the latest developments and certain drone sightings last night, immediately Amritsar airport was shut for civil operations for a few hours. It was initially said to be temporarily shut. However, the civil operations have been suspended for an extended period. And the airlines have now come up with a revised advisory, and like Air India has issued an advisory saying that in view of the latest developments and keeping your safety in mind, flights to from Jammu, Leh, Jodhpur, Amritsar, Bhuj, Jamnagar, Chandigarh and Rajkot, they have said stand cancelled till May 13. So this has been extended till today. But the situation is being monitored. Similarly, other airlines like Indigo, Akasha, and many others have also, SpiceJet also has come up with the advisories for passengers. They are also saying that
Welcome back. Now, amid calm at the borders that have been arrived at after certain deliberations at the DGMO level between India and Pakistan, Jammu and Kashmir is slowly limping back to normalcy. Schools have reopened in most of the districts. Let's take a look. So we are learning that schools have reopened. As far as air travel is concerned, there were still some restrictions, and we do know how flight restrictions did come into effect after some amount of drone sighting took place in the Samba sector of Jammu and Kashmir last night. And now, although the army really has said that there is nothing to panic, there are talks that are happening at the military level with Pakistan. And right now, the understanding stance of a ceasefire between both the nations. My colleague Ishan Vani is joining us for more. Ishan, schools have reopened. When you speak to the locals in Jammu and Kashmir, what is it? Because we do know how they have always lived under the shadow of indecisiveness of what can really come from the other side of the border, particularly in the wake of the escalation that came in from Pakistan. But now it's about children. What are the security measures that are in place before this decision came into effect?
Well, these are the areas precisely where there is no border shelling that has taken place. And those areas which are not part of borders or line of control, those areas have been excluded from this reopening. What we have noticed in a couple of days is that the traffic plying on the roads has been considerably less. And if you look at the street today, it's a little abuzz. If you look at me behind me, this is one of the busiest streets in Srinagar. And today you will notice the traffic is plying as usual and people are going about their normal routine and life. A lot of people who came from the rural part of Kashmir had desisted from coming towards the city and city center, possibly because they feared that there could be a possibility of escalation between the two countries. So that's why people were trying to stay put where they are. But today we are seeing that much normalcy has now returned. People have confidence that there wouldn't be much that will be taken borders. And because of the vulnerability of the situation, many people had chosen to stay indoors. And because of the schools also being closed, so life had become a little slower. Now today what we are seeing is that the traffic activity has started to pick up. Schools have reopened, minus those areas which are part of the line of control or on the border. Considering their safety, government has decided not to reopen them today. But in coming days, there will be a decision made in regard to this, because a lot of families have been uprooted from their houses. They have been shifted to other places, and these families have, relocated.
Right, Ishan, there's a problem with your audio. We'll try and re-establish the connection with Ishan. He's joining us live from Srinagar, and right now the situation in Srinagar is slowly getting back to normal. Let's get in a word from Jammu. My colleague Anshul is joining us from there. Anshul, what is the word on the streets? Are the people really feeling very secure to send their children to schools for that matter, or just about go about their daily routine, particularly after the kind of attack and escalation that was seen from the Pakistani side?
Well, yes, definitely Pakistan escalated, but the manner in which our defense forces have gone ahead and given a reply, and also have made sure that none of these cheap Pakistani drones actually land out here in India, not injuring anyone. Definitely the confidence amongst the locals, especially out here in Jammu and nearby areas, is definitely very, very high. Now, as the district administration has taken this decision that all the schools across Jammu and Kashmir should remain will open from today, except from those in bordering areas. Because remember, yesterday as well, out here in Jammu, in the bordering areas of Sambha, Akhnur, there were sightings of drones that happened, and the Indian Armed Forces made sure, or the Indian Air Defence System made sure that all these drones were shot down without any issues. But yes, the schools have reopened over here. Traffic is getting back to normal. Shops have opened. The confidence amongst the locals over here is absolutely very high, because the manner in which we have responded to these empty threats of Pakistan, this is something that has given a lot of confidence to each and every person of this country.
Right. Ishan and Anshul, I'd want to understand this from the both of you, that there was an announcement of a mock drill in various parts of the country, and right when that was supposed to happen, Operation Sindoor was launched. Will that mock drill continue to happen, considering these are children that we're talking about? They have begun to go to school starting today, and these are areas which have been impacted heavily because of the escalation by Pakistan. Ishan, to you first.
Well, there are no mock drills that are taking place, and the government believes that they don't need to do it anymore because of the de-escalation situation. But in what areas there can be possibility hitting young children and students particularly, so that in case of any eventuality they can location. We have seen in the past.
Ishan, some problem with your audio again. We'll try and fix that. But right now we're getting some more breaking news on the broadcast, and this is the impact of Operation Sindoor, as Pakistan has given details of their army personnel and air force personnel who have been killed in the operation against India. A big update that's coming in from Pakistan, as Pakistan has given the names of the army and air force personnel who have been killed in the Operation Sindoor. And India launched on terrorist camps. There was an escalation later by Pakistan, where Pakistan ended up attacking civilian areas in India, and then there was a counter to that. That was a proportionate response that came in from the Indian side, and there were attacks on the airstrips of Pakistan, and how the air bases were attacked. And there were craters left of those air bases, particularly in the Noor Khan Air Base, which was close to Rawalpindi, the army headquarters. And now, for the first time, there has been an official detailing and details that have been put on record of army personnel and air force personnel of Pakistan who have been killed during India's Operation Sindoor. So that direct and official account that is coming to fore. Earlier, they were not really accepting on the kind of military casualties that were coming in from Pakistan, but this time there is a list that's been given, both army and air force personnel who have been killed in Pakistan because of Operation Sindoor. My colleague Akash has all of these details. Yes, Akash.
Pakistan has lost 11 at least, from Pakistani army, and also they have confirmed that 78, at least 78. Also, as far as casualties are concerned, so it has been categorically mentioned by Indian side that at least 35 to 40, of their Jawans were killed. In fact, in the artillery fire. However, they have come out with 11 names, and we have seen in the past that how they have always hidden, the exact number. So at least they have accepted that 11 of their Jawans were killed, in action, and 78 are wounded.
Right, Akash, thank you so much for that. In fact, they are still maintaining that because of Operation Sindoor that was launched on the intervening night of May 6th and 7th, which they have claimed by India as dastardly. This is the missive that is coming in from Pakistan. They also talk of civilian casualties, a propaganda again by Pakistan. However, India has maintained and dissed all of these claims that they only attacked terrorist infrastructure. There was no civilian, even military attack, at least when the start of Operation Sindoor really happened. Now, the Directors General of Military Operation of India and Pakistan concluded their latest round of talks. They reaffirmed the understanding to cease fire and military action along the border. The talks also focused on reinforcing the existing ceasefire framework, with both the sides highlighting the need for strict adherence to prevent escalatory incidents. Remember, this message underscores New Delhi's resolve to safeguard its territorial integrity and maintain peace while holding Pakistan accountable for any provocations. Pakistan, for its part, has reiterated its commitment to the ceasefire and has also expressed willingness to cooperate in reducing tensions. Now, after discussion, DGMOs agreed to troop reduction from forward areas and border regions as well. Notably, no report of the discussion of the Indus Waters Treaty and its suspension has come to fore so far. Akash continues to be with us on the broadcast. Akash, this was pretty evident that the IWT is not going to be discussed at the DGMO level. That is the only amount of engagement that we are doing with Pakistan. But this reduction of troops on forward areas, what does it mean?
So we know that how mobilization, is there from Pakistani side, in the forward areas, specifically, after 22nd of April when Pahalgam happened, they in fact mobilized their troops. They in fact moved their artillery and in fact, tanks we have been learning. But now it was categorically mentioned by the DGMO in the conversation that happened yesterday that how, for the confidence building measure, troops should be reduced. Further, there should be no firing at the LC and there should be no military activity. As far as IWT is concerned, so these are military level talks. Matter has escalated to military level and that's why IWT would not be discussed. We know that how DGMOs connected yesterday and we are also learning that very soon they will be connecting once again to discuss the modalities and in fact to discuss the matter further.
Right. We're also learning, Akash. In fact, we will let you, get us more information on this. But right now, we have this breaking piece of information that we are learning of as there has been a Shopian encounter. Additional forces have been rushed to the areas as we are learning that 2 to 3 terrorists could be trapped, but no fresh gunfire for the last couple of minutes has been reported of. Area is being surrounded at the moment. An important piece of news. Remember, ever since the Pahalgam terrorist attack happened on the 22nd of April, I beg your pardon, there have been reports on how the terrorists who unleashed that kind of dastardly violence against innocent civilians in the scenic town of Pahalgam were still holed up in various areas in Kashmir, in South Kashmir jungles. Now, we are learning that there has been an encounter between security forces and terrorists in Shopian, and additional forces have been rushed to this area. 2 to 3 terrorists, this is a number that we are looking at, who could be still there in that area, who could be possibly trapped. They are looking for a way out. And right now, we do know that there has been no fresh gunfire that has been reported, but there was some amount of skirmish, and we did hear gunfires and gunshots earlier where there was an encounter that was underway. My colleague Ishan Vani will give us more details. Ishan, are we looking at the same terrorists who we have not been talking about so far because of the growing escalation between India and Pakistan? Are these the people who were responsible for the Pahalgam terror attack, or we are still to ascertain that?
We still have to wait for some time for that thing to be ascertained because forces have now surrounded the entire area. We're told that few gunshots were heard. That means the contact with those hiding terrorists has been established, and the multiple teams of the Indian Army, including the para SOG of the J&K police and the CRPF, are laying a tight cordon around the vicinity to ensure that those who are responsible and are held there are basically trapped and they do not escape from the vicinity. What we also have been given to understand is that the forces were acting upon a tip-off about presence of these militants in that locality, and once they reached there, they surrounded the area and the target house, and that's when target location, and that's when a barrage of gunfire was heard. And since then, they have been trying to ensure that they do not escape from the area. We're told that there is also a possibility that a forest area is surrounding this particular location. Whether or not are the same people who are responsible for carrying out Pahalgam attack, one has to wait and see. but definitely something which the J&K police and the security agencies would want to pursue in terms of trying to eliminate those who are hiding in that vicinity, and that seems to be the priority of security forces right now. At least we're being given to understand is that 2 to 3 of them are trapped in the locality, and the forces have surrounded the area, and they have been sending more additional reinforcements to ensure that the operation is concluded well on time, and before the fall of sun, they are able to eliminate those who are there hiding there. But yes, it's a far-off place in Shopian. It's called Keller. There's a forest area also surrounded, and there's a possibility that they might have been hiding in the forest area for a while. And today the forces had received the information about their presence, and now the operation has been launched in the area to ensure that they are eliminated before they try to escape.
Right, Ishan, when did it begin? When were the gunshots first heard?
Well, what we know is that the gunshots were first heard in 30 minutes back, and then the forces were additionally rushed in there. We have been told that there are 3 of them, 2 to 3 of them on which the J&K police had input about, and from there they have been trying to send additional reinforcement to the area. There has been a burst of exchange of gunfire that has taken place initially, and following that multiple teams of security forces have been sent to the area to ensure that they do not run away from the cordon, and they are kept well in the cordon area, and they do not escape from the vicinity. Look, for the forces, the paramount thing right now is that they carry out operations in multiple locations in Kashmir Valley to ensure that these militants who come in, or if they are local or foreigners, they are eliminated, because any of them can inflict damage and harm the security in Jammu and Kashmir. And at a time when there has been a fragile relationship between India and Pakistan, where India has already said that any terrorist attack would be considered as an act of war. So to ensure that the security remains continued and they are able to ensure that the more and more number of militants are eliminated, they are going to carry out these operations in Kashmir, and that's why you're seeing the one of such operations happening in Shopian. We don't yet know any confirmation about because the operation is still underway, so we don't know yet whether these are the same people who are responsible. Pahalgam, or this is a different group that was hiding there for a while.
Okay. All right. While you mentioned that it was a different group, Ishan, I'm sure there would have been a fair amount of tip-off that could have come in from the OGWs who were questioned by the NIA, particularly after the Pahalgam attack. Do you think this particular encounter could be a reason of that?
Well, because there has been a sustained push from the security forces in terms of trying to generate maximum inputs. There has been massive pressure that has been built post Pahalgam attack. The Home Minister has been tough on the security forces in terms of gathering inputs provided by the overground workers and technical input. Though there has been a talk about in the expert circle that post 2019 there was a bid by the forces and the agencies to not engage with any of the suspects who can provide the information, but directly go towards those persons, those people who are harboring and trying to play a double-edged game. So for forces, the inputs that they can generate is from one, OGWs, and second is the possibility to get from the technical intelligence. But in terms of opening up of the communication devices, checking the network dumps from time to time, if there is any suspected number which has been opened up in a particular locality, or if there's any satellite phone that has been opened up, or any other technology that has been used. So these are become an important part of the forces, reinforcement in those areas.
Yes.
And you will see that technology is providing them an edge, particularly to track them down. But the encounter is very much on. What we have been given to understand while you asked me the question, that the fresh firing has resumed, and the forces are ensuring that all those who are hiding there are eliminated.
All right, so fresh firing has resumed. That's an important update that Ishan is giving us. We're also constantly playing out these visuals of additional forces that are being rushed to that area from where that encounter has been reported out of. Ishan, we were earlier talking about when that Pahalgam terror attack took place, on how there were several possible routes that these terrorists might have taken. I want to understand, ever since the launch of Operation Sindoor, what was the status of this counter-terror operation within Kashmir, considering we had proper intel that these terrorists were still holed up in the valley? What was the status of that?
Well, operation never ended. It's just the focus changed. Between when the Operation Sindoor started to take place, a lot of attention of the media particularly shifted towards the operation, because it was a big operation that India carried out on Pakistan, and Pakistan retaliated, and India was able to counter that retaliation. And the line of control remained hot for a very long time, so the focus shifted there. But we have been speaking to the sources in between all of these happening, that they have been constantly telling us that the operation is very much on, and thousands of forces are chasing them in the jungles of Kokarnag, Pahalgam, and an adjacent area. Look, these mountains are interlinked, and they're close closely knitted together. And if you pass on, go from one location to another, from one mountain range to another, so the district can change, the locality can change, and the area can change, and the topography can change. And when you pass through and trek for several days, you can even reach Kishtwar, Rajouri, Poonch. So that is their modus operandi. They don't stay at one place. They try to change their tracks and go to different places. And plus, the communication devices that they have gives forces a signal of 5 kilometers radius. So it becomes difficult for them to chase the 5 kilometer radius, particularly in the jungle area. And to reach that 5 kilometer radius, which is deep into the jungle, it takes several hours. And by the time they reach there, there's a possibility of those who are opening up that signal, particularly these terrorists, that they are able to go out of that location. So that is where it gets very tricky for the forces. But the operation has been there. There are multiple teams of para which have been deployed on the ground. The J&K Police's Special Operation Group is also there. But look, it's not easy to carry out jungle operations. You have to sustain for several days, and also you cannot get food, water supplies very easily, because you have trekked for a week. You have reached a place where there is no road, there is no accessibility. So dropping anything there wouldn't be easy. So that is where the trickiest part comes in. And you can't send new fresh reinforcement to that place. That means that you will take additional 5 days or 7 days to reach there. So that's why jungle warfare is becoming a reality, and the India is trying to live up to that. And that is why you see the Indian Army's para unit commando is training the Special Operation Group of J&K Police in Jammu to deal with, to make them familiar with the jungle warfare now. And we have seen the number of incidents have taken place in the jungle areas, and that's why it becomes very tricky and important for the forces to deal with the jungle warfare. The operation is very much on in Pahalgam and other areas, but will it be the same operation? Is it the same group? That's what we have to wait and watch for.
Right, Ishan, do stay on with us and pick up more information as we speak. There was a search and cordon operation, and in that there was an exchange of fire. There was an engagement with 2 to 3 terrorists who were probably holed up in this area in Shopia, and that's an important piece of update. We have a special guest join us on the broadcast. Major General AK Sivach is with us. Major General Sivach, what do you make of these developments? We do know how there were terrorists who launched that entire terror attack in Pahalgam, were still holed up in the valley when Operation Sindoor happened. They were trapped. They could not move to border areas because of the obvious shelling and escalation that came in from the Pakistani side. Now we learn of these terrorists, 2 to 3 of them, that are very much present in Shopia. Where is the connect?
The point is there can be a connect, no doubt. You see, the point as the summer comes in, you will find that the number of terrorist activity will increase, and you will find number of operations will take place in South Kashmir. Is it connected with what happened in Pahalgam? That may be premature to say. But then the information which we have got it, and once the information which you are also now giving through your channel, that one of the 4 terrorists which were involved in Pahalgam was trapped in the valley. Maybe this can be connected, but then everything will depend once the operation is over and the terrorists are neutralized, then only you can identify. But certainly you will find this summer the operations are going to increase manifold. You will find it terrorists will be operating in hinterland. They will be operating mainly from the higher reaches also in South Kashmir, and we will operate against them because all-out operation this time has slightly changed. Now this time what the Indian Army is doing, the operations are going in North Kashmir, South Kashmir, on the higher reaches, and also south of Pir Punjab. So it will be our good luck if the terrorists which have been now being holed up or they have been trapped and we have already surrounded them and the operation is on and they have connect with Pahalgam. So this can be a very good news, but we can only say after they are eliminated and their identity is being then known. But certainly it's a good news, but I can only say that this summer you will find the operation will be manifold than what it was.
Major General Sivach, thank you so much. So 2 to 3 terrorists holed up in Shopia area, and that encounter, cordon and search operation is on between the security forces and the terrorists. That's it from my side. My colleague Akanksha takes over the broadcast from here on.
A very warm welcome. You're watching CNN News 18. I'm Akanksha Swaroop with our top focus on the India-Pakistan tensions. It's important to begin with Prime Minister's stern address following Operation Sindoor, as Prime Minister Modi warned Pakistan and that India's new policy against terrorism is now the new normal. He stressed that terrorism and talks cannot coexist, reaffirming that India will not bow down to nuclear blackmail. Modi declared that India had paused its offensive on Pakistan's terror camps and military sites, but any future attack by Pakistan will be considered as an act of war. The Prime Minister has saluted the valour of Indian Armed Forces for carrying out the operation and dedicated it to every mother, sister and daughter of the country. Prime Minister Modi also gave a clear message on new age warfare and doctrine against terrorism. In an indirect message to world leaders, including Donald Trump, seeking for dialogue between India and Pakistan, Modi has categorically stated that if there are talks, it will only be on terrorism and with regards to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
आतंकियों ने हमारी बहनों का सिंदूर उजाड़ा था, इसलिए भारत ने आतंक के ये हेडक्वार्टर्स उजाड़ दिए। भारत के इन हमलों में 100 से अधिक खूंखार आतंकवादियों को मौत के घाट उतारा गया। जो भारत के खिलाफ साजिशें करते थे, उन्हें भारत ने एक झटके में खत्म कर दिया। कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की आड़ में पनप रहे आतंकी ठिकानों पर भारत सटीक और निर्णायक प्रहार करेगा। हमारी घोषित नीति रही है, अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो टेररिज्म पर ही होगी। अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पीओके उस पर ही होगी। हमारे सैन्य ठिकानों को निशाना बनाया, लेकिन इसमें भी पाकिस्तान खुद बेनकाब हो गया। पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया। 10 मई की दोपहर को पाकिस्तानी सेना ने हमारे डीजीएमओ को संपर्क किया। तब तक हम आतंकवाद के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बड़े पैमाने पर तबाह कर चुके। हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है।
All right, Payal Mehta, Pallavi Ghosh and Siddhant Mishra join me on the broadcast. Payal, if I could come to you with regards to the resounding message that has been sent out by Prime Minister Modi, touch upon all of those points that Prime Minister has elucidated, especially when it comes to India's policy on Kashmir. Not to forget the fact that the way the global media is trying to, in fact, project this entire matter as has been now calmed down by the intervention of the US President. The fact of the matter remains, what perhaps all of Western media is forgetting is that it was their DGMO which called the Indian counterpart.
Well, of course, the Prime Minister, in no uncertain words, is sending a message loud and clear, not just to people back home, you know, including those naysayers, but also to people across the entire globe, saying that Pakistan should not meddle in any internal affairs of India, and no other country should really do, because every inch of Kashmir is ours. And, you know, whenever we speak to Pakistan, it will be on issues like PoK and terrorism. And that 140 crore Indians together stand united in this effort, including the political parties. The Prime Minister said that there is no point of Pakistan showing us any, you know, nuclear dhamki. That the Prime Minister really said that nuclear ki dhamki nahi chalegi. Which clearly means that India is approaching this in a new aspect. Although our stated policy on Pakistan just remains the same. But a big message to the people of the country by the Prime Minister, who's given out the entire timeline of what really transpired after the 22nd of April, taking everybody into confidence, dispelling a lot of rumors that were doing the rounds as well, including what US has done
and how US was able to, mediate, etc. as well. Prime Minister leaving no scope for any ambiguity over here.
Absolutely. Let me quickly bring in Pallavi on that note. Pallavi, when Payal says that Prime Minister not leaving any... all right, we're getting in some breaking inputs from what we are learning. In fact, all right, the political storm brewing over US President Donald Trump's claims of mediating a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. They are questioning whether India agreed to a third-party mediation on the Kashmir issue following Trump's statements claiming that he is the one who pressurized both nations into accepting a ceasefire by threatening trade cuts. However, India has firmly denied Trump's assertions. The government maintains that the ceasefire understanding was reached only after talks between the Directors General of Military Operations of India and Pakistan without any US intervention. Prime Minister Modi, while addressing the nation, said that Pakistan initiated contact with India and sought the ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, opposition leaders have called for a special session of Parliament to discuss not only this issue, but also the recent Pahalgam attack and Operation Sindoor. In the meanwhile, let's also listen in to the reactions.
On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons.
हमने प्रधानमंत्री का वक्तव्य सुना और उनके वक्तव्य से कुछ मिनटों पहले अमेरिकी राष्ट्रपति डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का भी वक्तव्य सुना, जिसने पूरे देश को बहुत आश्चर्यचकित भी कर दिया, व्यथित भी कर दिया। इस देश में सिंदूर बेशकीमती माना जाता है, उसके साथ व्यापार की बात नहीं हो सकती। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने जो व्यापार का शब्द इस्तेमाल किया कि व्यापार की वजह से मैं इन दोनों को रोक पाया हूं, यह मुझे लगता है बहुत चौंकाने वाला भी है और बहुत दुखी करने वाला भी है। इस पे हम उम्मीद करते थे प्रधानमंत्री कोई वक्तव्य देंगे, कोई सफाई देंगे, कोई स्पष्टीकरण देंगे, कोई जवाब देंगे। नहीं हुआ। सामरिक दृष्टि से हमने क्या खोया, क्या पाया, उस पर हमें चर्चा करनी चाहिए और आगे एक सामूहिक संकल्प बनाकर पूरे विश्व को दिखाना चाहिए कि हिंदुस्तान एक आवाज में बात कर रहा है।
बात ऐसी यहाँ से विशेष पार्लियामेंट का हम तो इसके खिलाफ नहीं, मगर ये सेंसिटिव इशू है। इस बारे में डेप्थ डिस्कशन सीरियस इशू है तो सदन में देना मुश्किल होता है। मिनिस्टर को भी सब डिस्कस करना इतना आसान नहीं, ये फायदे की बात नहीं है। सेशन बुलाना हो तो बुलाइए, और सेशन से ज़्यादा लाभ हम आपस में बैठेंगे तो होगा।
Congress government never even retaliated after 26/11. It was only Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji in 2019 who removed the most favored nation status of Pakistan, and the Congress didn't do that in 2008. Now we see how the Prime Minister has decisively combated terrorism, and the Prime Minister Modi ji has always had a very commanding forward policy in dealing with terrorism, be it how we responded, the surgical strikes in 2016 or Balakot airstrikes in 2019 and now Operation Sindoor, one of India's, greatest military victories. The Prime Minister's speech yesterday touched a chord with every Indian, and especially in the way in which he saluted our brave men and women in uniform.
All right, I bring in Pallavi on that note. Pallavi, many skeptics are questioning how India was unable to capitalize on the military momentum it had gained during Operation Sindoor, but the Prime Minister, not mincing any words, has made it amply clear that Operation Sindoor is it's the beginning of India's response to any terror act which will be treated as an act of war, and most importantly that terror and talks will not go hand in hand, neither will terror and trade.
Absolutely. And in fact, the Prime Minister was very menacing. He was very precise, and he made that message very, very clear, not just to Pakistan, but to the people of the world as well, and especially to the global community. And this is interesting because it comes in the backdrop of urgent pleas coming in from, say, America, that India and Pakistan must sit on a negotiating table. I think the Prime Minister has made it very clear. The time for talks are over. Pakistan will have to admit that it has bloodied its hand in terror activities. They'll also have to talk about PoK. And if Pakistan agrees to discuss both of these two issues, then India would have no qualms on coming on the table to speak to Pakistan. But the point is that over the years, we've seen that ample evidence and dossier has been provided, but Pakistan has never, ever accepted the fact that they are involved in acts of terror. So this is a very clear-cut message by the Prime Minister. And I would also say, while he was not political in his speech, he was clearly addressing the people of the country. There was also a message for the opposition parties that this is not the time to do politics. You know, he began by saying that on this issue, sub-political parties ek saath hain aur ek saath rahenge. I think this is a clear-cut message to opposition parties, not the time to do politics. We are making it very clear that there is no negotiations which are going to take place as far as the acts of terror and teaching Pakistan a lesson is concerned, which is why it was very important that he clarified also that Operation Sindoor mein se viram hai, it is not over. One more such cowardly act coming in from Pakistan is going to break all hell loose as far as the Indian side is concerned.
Pallavi, I want to bring you in on the calls, the repeated calls for a special session in the parliament, that too by the Congress party. That in itself has also exposed the difference of opinions within the India front. You have a Sharad Pawar saying that it may not be ideal to call for a special session when it comes to an issue of national security. Take us through the kind of reactions we are seeing come in from the opposition, which are fairly mixed.
Akanksha, I think it's only the Congress party which really has decided that they are the ones who are going to ask for a special session, which is why the letter went in from Mr. Kharge and Rahul Gandhi to the Prime Minister, an urgent special session of Parliament. But there are problem areas there. Mr. Pawar, very rightly, because he is a mature politician and he understands the nuances. What happens when a session of Parliament is held? Obviously, it's beamed live. And it's not going to be all hunky-dory. It's going to be combative and confrontationist. And the Congress party is very clear. They're going to ask questions of the Prime Minister, which the government says we are ready to answer. But let's do it behind closed doors at an all-party meeting. Why do you want to do it in Parliament, where it's going to be all hell breaks loose? There are going to be words which are going to be exchanged. And many of those words are going to be some which are going to embolden Pakistan, because then Pakistan will say that, look, how the opposition parties are so divided and Modi government does not have the entire country or the political class backing him. That's one point, I think, which has been raised by Mr. Pawar. Frankly speaking, Akansha, as of now, no indication coming in from the government that they will agree to a special session. That session, in any case, is there in monsoon, end of June, July. And all these matters will be taken up. I think that most there could be an all-party meeting.
Absolutely. In fact, surprising that TMC and Samajwadi Party have chosen a very carefully deliberated silence. We'll have to see how this shapes up in the days ahead. Many thanks to you, Pallavi, for bringing us all those inputs. Now, in a short interview with CNN's Nick Robertson, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has discussed key issues following the Operation Sindoor. Dar has talked of a dignified, dialogue-driven path to lasting peace. A question remains, is Pakistan in a position to ask for a dialogue-driven path when it has done absolutely zilch to address the issue of terrorism emanating from Pak soil? Listen.
After having seen our escalation, rather counter-escalation and in defense, I think then certain capitals, in particular US, realized it could be a really filthy next moves.
And what did they say to you then?
No, they all. I had a call after Secretary Rubio talked to Mr. Jaishankar. He talked to me. It was around 8:15 on 10th of Saturday, 10th of
right
May.
After the counter strikes.
Yeah, and our operation had ended almost, and he said India is ready to stop it now.
Secretary Rubio said to you that India is ready to stop this.
Would you be willing? I said, of course. I said, we give your word, and if India does not restart, we would not do it.
What did J.D. Vance or Secretary Rubio, what did they say to their Indian counterparts that caused India to say that they were now ready for mediation?
I have no idea, but I think they were seeing practically that they had seen what happened in the sky in the Air Force to Air Force, and they were seeing now having sent drones and having fired missiles. Now we are now in a first time reacting after almost 3 days. So they could see how serious the the damage was on their side, I'm sure they would have realized that they had miscalculated.
And during this process, the United States gave you assurances about the test. What assurances did they give you?
Assurance was very simple, that if we agreed to stop, obviously I was told that he will reconfirm to the Indian side.
Secretary Rubio.
Secretary Rubio would reconfirm, and that's exactly what happened.
All right, let me quickly go across to Siddhant, who's been tracking all the international developments as far as the ceasefire is concerned. Siddhant, Ishak Dar's interview is just a testimony to how Donald Trump, in announcing that ceasefire, has not only broken away from protocol, given that it should have ideally come first from New Delhi and Islamabad, he's also placed the aggressor and the victim at par yet again, as Dr. Jaishankar has throughout consistently been highlighting on the Kashmir issue and the Western interventions throughout.
Well, yes, that's right, Akanksha. In fact, New Delhi rebuts the claims made by President Donald Trump. In fact, yesterday also he came up with a statement. Perhaps that was his first televised statement on India-Pakistan issue. And interestingly, he was not speaking on this issue. Perhaps it was a forum for something else. But he decided to make remarks on India-Pakistan, understanding which have been reached by two countries. Perhaps again trying to take credit of the understanding reached between the two sides. Indian government rebuts the claims made by President Trump. Nowhere, Akanksha, from 8th of May to 10th of May, between this time frame, nowhere trade was discussed between the two sides. Neither trade was discussed, nor mediation was happened, or perhaps never India sought USS's assistance to reach understanding with Pakistan. Point number one. Point number two, today Foreign Minister of Pakistan Ishak Dar gave interview to CNN International, and in fact he said that after Marco Rubio speaking to Foreign Minister Jaishankar, Marco Rubio called Ishak Dar and perhaps told him that India is ready to stop now. Perhaps what Marco Rubio told Ishak Dar, what Ishak Dar understood is perhaps is up to them to clarify. But as far as Indian side is concerned, perhaps Foreign Minister Jaishankar never discussed mediation, never discussed trade with Marco Rubio. Point number one. Point number two, on 10th May, when our forces hit Pakistani air bases and military bases, 11 of them, and perhaps Pakistan realized that they cannot take on India and they cannot continue the combat. So DGMO calls were initiated. Before that, Marco Rubio, when called Minister Jaishankar very clearly told Marco Rubio that if they will fire, we will fire. That was the standard position of the government of India at that point in time. And there was no talk about that India is ready to stop now, etc., as being claimed by Ishak Dar. So as I've been saying from day one, that this is Pakistan who perhaps leaked information to the United States, and in fact and let them take the credit of the understanding reached between India and Pakistan ahead of the Foreign Secretary's press briefing on 10th of May.
Siddhant, also shed light and perhaps also clear the air with regards to the confusion about has trade been used as a bargaining chip by the United States between India and Pakistan, given that President Donald Trump has always tom-tommed about now, ever since he announced that ceasefire, that he will go ahead with trade and how he will continue to trade with both the countries, India and Pakistan.
Well, India rebuts claims made by President Donald Trump on 10th of May, and again what he said yesterday in a televised statement. America never played any role in mediation. Perhaps India never sought America's assistance. India knew that the time India will hit Pakistan and perhaps will destroy their air bases, their airstrips and radars, India will get an upper hand. in the combat, and perhaps that would be the time when Pakistan will go down on its knees and beg for an understanding, and that exactly happened. On 10th of May, in the morning, 11 of Pakistani military and Air Force installations were hit by the Indian side. Right after that, Pakistan did an assessment, and perhaps they found, Akanksha, that their airstrips were destroyed, their radars were destroyed, their air defense systems have been badly hit, so they cannot continue the combat with India. And indeed, they called up Uncle Sam. They cried before United States, and Marco Rubio did speak to Asim Munir, Ishaq Dar, and then to Foreign Minister Jaishankar. But it also needs to be highlighted what Foreign Minister told Marco Rubio. Foreign Minister said that if they will fire, we will fire. He never said that India is going to stop. And Akanksha, for the sake of our viewers, Prime Minister Modi also said yesterday that now Operation Sindoor is a state policy against terrorism. So we have still not stopped as far as terrorism is concerned. India's line is very clear. In fact, after which Ishaq Dar claims that Secretary Rubio called him back and told him that India has agreed to stop. Perhaps that is the conversation which happened between Ishaq Dar and Marco Rubio.
True.
So they are claiming that this happened. But India has made it very clear, no talks on trade ever happened from 8th of May to 10th of May, and India never sought US assistance, nor US has mediated the understanding between India and Pakistan.
Oh, absolutely. And this is clearly evidence that India has the upper hand. Let's not forget, as Prime Minister has highlighted, that terror and talks will not go hand in hand, neither will terror and trade. And most importantly, that blood and water cannot flow together, which means that we still have the upper hand with the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. Many thanks to you, Siddharth, for bringing us that perspective. As our correspondents have all been highlighting that the politicking has already begun, with the Grand Old Party primarily demanding a special session be held. Let's listen in to some reactions.
कांग्रेस पार्टी ऑपरेशन सिंदूर का पूरा समर्थन पहले से हमने किया था, पर प्रधानमंत्री के संबोधन के पहले ही राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने घोषणा कर दी कि वॉशिंगटन में रहकर मैंने इंडिया, भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच में युद्ध रुका दी। यानी कि वॉशिंगटन में रहकर उन्होंने यहाँ का युद्ध रुकवाया है। उस पर तो प्रधानमंत्री ने कुछ कहा नहीं। प्रधानमंत्री को बहुत सारे सवालों को जवाब देना है, उस पर तो वो चुप थे। तो आज भी हम मांग करते हैं प्रधानमंत्री एक बैठक बुलाएं, सभी विपक्ष नेताओं को बुलाएं, विश्वास में लें। और ये क्या बार बार राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप घोषणा कर रहे हैं? क्या कोई रिश्ता है यहाँ युद्ध रोकने का और भारत के साथ, अमेरिका के साथ हमारा जो निर्यात जा रहा है वो और भी बढ़ेगा?
नहीं, स्पेशल सेशन ऑफ पार्लियामेंट के उसके लिए तो कॉल लेना पड़ेगा सरकार को, कब वो बुलाती है, कब उसके लिए सही समय होता है वो निर्धारित सरकार करेगी। फिलहाल दोनों देशों के बीच में तनाव कम हुआ है लेकिन ख़त्म नहीं हुआ, तो ये समय सेना का मनोबल बढ़ाने का है, ये समय पूरे स्ट्रैटेजिक प्लानिंग करने का है। जब ये सेशन बुलाने की बात होगी तो सरकार उचित समय पर उचित निर्णय लेगी। फिलहाल कॉशियस रहने का समय है।
The statement which has come from the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump, is, whether you like it or not, a factual statement. If you look at the India-Pakistan paradigm in a perspective, from 1947 till 1972, whenever tensions went up between India and Pakistan, and they were primarily over the state of Jammu and Kashmir, it is the United Nations Security Council resolutions which were the template for whatever interlocution took place between the two countries. You see, the bottom line ultimately is that when tensions ratchet up between two de facto nuclear weapon states, the rest of the world is not going to stand by and watch. So, therefore, the other countries of the world will obviously be talking to both the countries when you are not talking to each other.
जिस तरीके से बार बार पाकिस्तान सीज फायर वायलेशन कर रहा है, तो ये जवाबी कार्रवाई
करने के लिए देश बिल्कुल तत्पर है और हमारी सेना बिल्कुल तैयार है कि इनको जवाबी कार्रवाई मिले, क्योंकि हमारी जो कार्रवाई हुई थी वो सिविलियंस को अटैक करके नहीं हुई थी, टारगेटेड थी, डेसिसिव थी और मेजर्ड थी। पर यहाँ पर जो कर रहे हैं कि ड्रोन्स भेज रहे हैं और लगातार सीज फायर वायलेशन कर रहे हैं, दुनिया को देखना चाहिए, वो खास करके वो देश जिन्होंने IMF का लोन इनको दिया, वो देश जो कहता है कि उनके साथ ट्रेड करेंगे, उन देशों को देखना चाहिए कि कितना पाकिस्तान की जो आर्मी है उन्होंने पूरा कब्जा जमाया हुआ है। एंड इट्स अ रोग नेशन। पाकिस्तान कम रहा है, आतंकिस्तान ज्यादा बन चुका है।
प्रधानमंत्री की जो स्पीच और खास तौर पर पाकिस्तान को एक करारा जवाब दिया है अपनी स्पीच के जरिए।
देखिए, प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का देश की सुरक्षा और दुश्मनों के सफाए के संकल्प से भरपूर जो है वो लाउड एंड क्लियर मैसेज था, और देश की सुरक्षा और दुश्मनों के सफाए से भरपूर जो लाउड एंड क्लियर मैसेज था वो जमीन पे भी दिखाई पड़ा। और जो हमारी बुद्ध की धरती से जो युद्ध के धुरंधरों ने जुल्म और जुर्म के जल्लादी और जिहादी जानवरों को ज़मींदोज़ किया है, जो ज़ख्म दिया है वो उनको जन्मांतर ये ज़ख्म याद रहेगा। क्योंकि जिस तरह से उन्होंने आतंकवाद को इन ताकतों ने, आकाओं ने उनके आतंकवाद को अपना इस्लाम का सुरक्षा कवच बना करके, इस्लाम को आतंकवाद का सुरक्षा कवच बना करके जिस तरह का जुल्म और जुर्म के जल्लादी जानवरों ने हरकतें की हैं, वो कोई भी इंसानियत का और कोई भी दुनिया का देश जो है उसे स्वीकार नहीं कर सकता। और इसलिए जो है वो हमारा मानना है कि हमारे जो सेना है और हमारा जो नेतृत्व है उसने जुल्म और जुर्म के जल्लादी और जिहादी जानवरों को जो जख्म दिया है वो जन्मांतर याद रहने वाला है उनको।
जिस तरीके से सरकार का, केंद्र सरकार का स्टेप रहा है, या फिर सेना ने जो उस तरीके से हमला किया आतंकी तमाम जगहों पर, उसके बाद भी देश में बहुत सारे राजनीतिक दल हैं, खास करके कांग्रेस की तरफ से सवाल खड़ा किया जा रहा है।
देखो, एक बात कांग्रेस को मैं एक बात कहना चाहूँगा, उनको बिना मांगी सलाह दूंगा कि अगर वो 71 की दास्तां जो है वो शुरू करेंगे तो उनको 75 का जो है वो दमन भी याद करना होगा। केवल इसी उद्देश्य से अगर संसद का सत्र चाहते हैं कि आप देश में कन्फ्यूजन पैदा करें और हमारे जो सेनाएं हैं उनके शौर्य और पराक्रम पर सवाल खड़े करें, तो सरकार को तय करना है।
Also, many believe that for a president who has failed to end the wars in Ukraine or Gaza, Kashmir certainly seems like a far cry. We will continue to track all the latest developments. Stay tuned to CNN News 18 as we slip into a quick break.
Indigo and Air India announced the cancellation of all flights 2 and 4 from 9 airports across North and West India for today. And the affected airports include Jammu, Amritsar, Chandigarh, Leh, Srinagar, Jodhpur, Jamnagar, Bhuj and Rajkot. Now, the airline cited renewed safety concerns as the primary reason for this abrupt suspension of services. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastav on this broadcast. Anvit, what is the reason being cited for the suspension of the services?
So recently, as we know, all 32 airports had been reopened for civil operations. But following the latest developments and certain drone sightings last night, immediately Amritsar airport was shut for civil operations for a few hours. It was initially said to be a temporarily shut. However, the civil operations have been suspended for an extended period, and the airlines have now come up with a revised advisory, and like Air India has issued an advisory saying that in view of the latest developments and keeping your safety in mind, flights to from and Jammu, Leh, Jodhpur, Amritsar, Bhuj, Jamnagar, Chandigarh and Rajkot, they have said stand cancelled till May 13. So they have this has been extended till today. But the situation is being monitored. Similarly, other airlines like Indigo, Akasha and
Welcome back. We're getting in breaking inputs shared by our Security Affairs Editor, Mr. Manoj Gupta. As what we're learning is that Pakistan has admitted to soldiers being killed in Operation Sindoor, and that Pak has released a list of soldiers that were killed in the Indian strike. Top intel sources are telling CNN News 18 that Pakistan is in a state of crisis. This due to the ego of their own Army General Asim Munir. Intel sources have also revealed that Pakistan Army's leadership wants proxy warfare with India, given that their army is not really in a situation to defend the country, as has been made amply clear during India's Operation Sindoor. I bring in Siddhant Mishra to add more inputs to that news story. Siddhant, given that Pakistan has been an unstable democracy and is also undergoing a theocratic army rule, what are the options right now for this country to defend itself?
Well, yes, that's right. In fact, Securities Editor Manoj Gupta is bringing this information for us. And in fact, Pakistan made crisis due to personal ego of an army general, daily ceasefire violations causing this type of a body bag counting. Pakistan's military leadership wants proxy warfare and nuclear threats over modernizing defenses or addressing government failures. By relying on outdated Chinese exports and shielding terrorists, it triggered a conflict it could not win. China's all-weather ally label exposed as hollow. No amount of ISPR propaganda Pak army is strong can mask anything. Everything is out now in public domain. The crisis was not unprovoked. It was the outcome of Pakistan's rogue policies. In fact, Akanksha, now ISPR has come up with a release. They have done the body count, and in fact, we don't know whether this body count is correct or just that they don't want to perhaps reflect upon more numbers at this point in time, because that would dent the reputation of Army General Asim Munir. So now they have come up with a release, and in fact, they have confirmed 40 civilians have been killed, 7 women and 15 children. In fact, 7 from the Pakistani army have been killed, 5 from the Pakistani Air Force have been killed. So in total, 11 personnel of the Pakistani army armed forces have attained martyrdom. This is what DG ISPR release has to say. 78 have been wounded. Akanksha, this number, they've been told that this number is very less. Perhaps this is not the real number. And why this is not the real number? Because if they will give out the real number, that will definitely dent the reputation of Army General Asim Munir. Because, what he's projecting at this point in time that his forces have won over India, perhaps creating a fake narrative. So if they will give the actual number, real number, that would definitely dent the reputation of Asim Munir and Pakistani armed forces.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly this country can't afford to hide the names of all of those shaheeds, and that will be a new low for Pakistan if they do so. Many thanks to you, Siddhant, for bringing us those breaking inputs. With that, we're slipping into a quick break. Stay tuned, as on the other side, we'll be bringing you the headlines this hour.
सस्ते वाले
Indigo and Air India announced the cancellation of all flights 2 and 4 from 9 airports across North and West India for today. And the affected airports include Jammu, Amritsar, Chandigarh, Leh, Srinagar, Jodhpur, Jamnagar, Bhuj and Rajkot. Now, the airline cited renewed safety concerns as the primary reason for this abrupt suspension of services. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastav on this broadcast. Anvit, what is the reason being cited for the suspension of the services?
So recently, as we know, all 32 airports had been reopened for civil operations. But following the latest developments and certain drone sightings last night, immediately Amritsar airport was shut for civil operations for a few hours. It was initially said to be a temporarily shut. However, the civil operations have been suspended for an extended period, and the airlines have now come up with a revised advisory, and like Air India has issued an advisory saying that in view of the latest developments and keeping your safety in mind, flights to from Jammu, Leh, Jodhpur, Amritsar, Bhuj, Jamnagar, Chandigarh and Rajkot, they have said stand cancelled.
Welcome back. Let's now begin with the headlines this hour that we are tracking as far as the tensions between India and Pakistan are concerned. To begin with, Union Cabinet is all set to meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. Prime Minister Modi is likely to chair a security meet. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri is going to brief the Parliamentary Committee on External Affairs on the current situation with Pakistan, and this will take place on May 19. Jammu and Kashmir security agencies have released posters of 3 Pakistani terrorists in the Pahalgam attack. An encounter is currently underway in Jammu and Kashmir's Shopia. Additional forces have rushed to the area as 2 to 3 terrorists are believed to be trapped. Now, Turkey and Azerbaijan, once top picks for Indian tourists, are facing the heat after voicing support for Pakistan. This following the barbaric Pahalgam terror attack on 22nd of April and India's subsequent Operation Sindoor. Azerbaijan's foreign ministry said it stands in solidarity with the people of Pakistan, with Turkey echoing this very stance very soon. That has triggered outrage on Indian social media with hashtags like #boycott Turkey and #boycott Azerbaijan trending. Indian tour operators are also taking a stand. Ease My Trip has issued a travel advisory urging Indians to avoid both countries unless absolutely necessary. Others like Cox & Kings and Lexigo have also suspended packages. Remember, India is one of the fastest growing markets for both countries. The fallout underscores how swiftly international politics can influence consumer behavior, with Indian travellers now rethinking their holiday plans in light of the national sentiment. Let's also take you through the impact of India's travel boycott, especially on Turkey. Remember, 3.3 lakh Indian tourists in 2024 visited Turkey. 20.7% growth was observed from 2023. That amounted to $500 billion. In fact, $500 million plus a potential revenue was also at risk. And as far as Azerbaijan is concerned, 2.43 lakh Indian tourists visited the country in 2024. That had in fact witnessed a surge of 108% from the previous year of 2023. And that also amounted to $350 million. Now, the estimated loss is going to be also equivalent to that much if the trend reverses. On that note, let's quickly go across to Siddhant, who's joining me live on the broadcast. Siddhant, take us through how consumer behavior has now been impacted by the tensions between India and its neighboring nation.
Well, Akanksha, we saw that how in last 3 weeks, this is perhaps for the first time that, the complete whole of the nation came together and spoke in one voice against Pakistan. And in fact, across party lines, across faiths, across beliefs, the entire India was united. And was rallying behind the armed forces, against Pakistan. And perhaps that reflects, that is being reflected on social media also. And in fact, as you rightly said, now the campaign has been started to boycott Turkey tourism and to boycott Azerbaijan tourism. Perhaps these two countries have been the beneficiary of Indian tourists going to these two countries and perhaps, contributing to their economy. In fact, for Indians, to be very honest, Turkey and Azerbaijan have been one of the favorite destinations all throughout. But after Pahalgam terror attack and perhaps the kind of statements, Akanksha, which came from these two countries have not gone down well with the Indians. May not be with the Indian government, but with the Indians. Now, there are campaigns, boycott campaigns that are being run on social media platforms. In fact, Akanksha, the travel agencies and these travel portals, they have also started discouraging, especially travel portal like Ease My Trip. They have also started discouraging tourists to go to Turkey and Azerbaijan, and perhaps they are also giving competitive packages to counter package to Turkey and Azerbaijan, so that people go to other destinations, not these two countries. So as I said before, this is perhaps very rare that entire country has come together, irrespective of faiths, irrespective of their political lines, and have spoken in one voice against Pakistan. So so clearly Indians have not liked the position taken by Azerbaijan and Turkey, and especially after the news coming out that the drones from Turkey were sent to India by Pakistan.
True.
And in fact that was mentioned by Indian Armed Forces yesterday in the press briefing as well.
Stay with me, Siddhant, as Pallavi is also joining in. Pallavi, it's always famously said that what's political is going to get personal, and so we are looking at an intersection of politics and travel. Having said that, how is the Indian government now looking at also diverting, say, that kind of focus on our own strategic ally, which happen to be Armenia and particularly Greece?
Akanksha, when it comes to terror and it comes to acts of terror, I think no country would want to be seen as negotiating or having any kind of a very good equation with countries which seem to be having blood on their hands. I think the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, where he made a reference to Chinese weapons, Turkish weapons, very clearly reflects the mind within the government. They are going to be considered as guilty as, say, Pakistan is because of the Pahalgam terror attack. And, it's not a coincidence, but whenever those DGMO briefings were taking place, there were very definite footage and clear-cut ones which were put out to show that Turkish drones were seen, which fell in Punjab. There were Chinese weapons, of course, which are very much a part of the operations conducted by Pakistan. So what is it that India is trying to tell the world? That countries like Turkey, the countries like China are guilty. They're as guilty as Pakistan. Because when you help a terrorist, you yourself become one. And therefore, in that context, there is definitely going to be a low as far as ties between India and Turkey is concerned. At this point of time, of course, I don't think, and Siddhant would know this better, you would know this better, I don't think India would want to go into a diplomatic tiff. But definitely the strain is showing. Our top government sources, finance ministry sources tell me that, we were looking at an increase of $20 billion aid with Turkey this time round. Turkey depends on us more than we depend on them. They depend on us for fruits, oil seeds, other products as well. All of that is now going to be cut down. We are not going to be negotiating any kind of a trade deal with Turkey. We are going to go silent mode. And a silent mode essentially shows a rethink and anger within the Indian government as well. When you talk about other issues, for example, there is no advisory, for example, being issued by the government that don't travel here. There are no advisories being given to tour operators. But it's the people themselves who are randomly cancelling all their bookings. Remember, this is the summer vacation season which begins. This is the tourist season. Turkey depends a lot on the Indian tourists, as Siddhant was correctly pointing out. It's going to hit the economy hard.
Right.
And I think the same strategy is going to be adopted as India has economically towards Pakistan. It would towards Turkey as well.
Stay with me, Pallavi and Siddhant. More breaking inputs coming in. In fact, Pallavi sharing these breaking inputs with us as government sources are sharing that India has had good equations with Ankara. We, in fact, helped them during the earthquake, remember, of February 2023. We even planned to increase the trade up to $20 billion. And Turkey needs us more for pulses, oil, seeds, steel. But India will now cut back on trade with Turkey. And it cannot negotiate with anyone who supports a terror state. Turkey has had its hands bloodied. Let me quickly go across to Pallavi, who brings us those breaking inputs. Pallavi, first of all, to decode this entire dynamics, why is Turkey actually doubling down on its support to Pakistan in the first place?
There was this surprise which was expressed, when that first footage came off of a Turkish drone near Bhatinda and in Punjab. Indians were very much stumped by this because they said that, Operation Dost was one of the main campaigns. And remember, when that earthquake came in Turkey, the first country, and the Prime Minister never even thought twice. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Prime Minister was traveling at that point of time overseas. And he made it very clear that, Turkey requires our help and should get our help. And they did in terms of medicines and other facilities as well. So therefore, some kind of gratitude is expected as far as diplomacy is concerned. You remember those bad times and where are the ones who helped you. As a government source told me, it's always war which shows you who's your friend and who's been by your side. I think the evidence that we've been showing through those press conferences of Turkish drones, Chinese weapons, goes on to show, China was not too much of a surprise, frankly speaking. That is something we are all very much aware of. But Turkey was something which it has heard. There's not going to be an open, official, diplomatic tip-off. But yes, I think we're going to go on a silent mode. We're going to go on a slow mode. And the first which is going to be impacted will, of course, be the trade ties between India and Turkey.
Absolutely. Siddhant, I'm sure you will agree that the recent developments have brought the growing axis between Islamabad and Ankara back into focus. Having said that, you went to Turkey at the time the earthquake hit. Take us through how India, in fact, was on the front line to rescue all of those stuck and trapped in the rubble of the earthquake. Operation Dost, if I'm not wrong, was launched by India. Our NDRF teams were on the front lines. Take us through how India has always stood steadfast in rescuing the country. All right, we will try and reconnect our audio with Siddhant. But as we were highlighting, India has always stood by Turkey's side, and in fact, it was our country that had launched Operation Dost back in the year 2023, February to be precise. Siddhant is back with us. Siddhant, I wanted you to share your inputs with regards to how India was on the front line of affairs when the earthquake struck the country back in 2023. You also covered it. And so how it was our country that launched Operation Dost to rescue the country from that deadly catastrophic earthquake.
Well, yes, that's right. In fact, at that time, Prime Minister Modi announced Operation Dost to help Turkey. Perhaps that was the worst ever earthquake Turkey witnessed in its entire history. In fact, Indian teams were sent to Gaziantep, the epicenter of the earthquake. Indian teams were there, and in fact, Indian teams contributed to the relief and rescue works right after the earthquake. And in fact, Turkey acknowledged India's contribution at that point in time. Akanksha, at the government level, there have always been efforts made to perhaps increase ties with Turkey, perhaps to strengthen ties with Turkey. In fact, I would also like to point out at this point in time that during the last address at the United Nations, perhaps Turkey also skipped mentioning Kashmir issue. Perhaps Turkey is one country which has always mentioned Kashmir issue during its United Nations address. But last time around, Turkey skipped mentioning Kashmir issue. Perhaps largely in last one decade, India had successfully outmaneuvered Pakistan's lies and propaganda as far as Kashmir is concerned. And in fact, Turkey also perhaps showed some signs of by not mentioning Kashmir at international forums.
Right.
But as you rightly said, after this Pahalgam attack and the way Turkey supported Pakistan, there was a statement first which came from the foreign minister. Then the President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, perhaps in a televised statement, Akanksha, said that Turkey supports public of Pakistan. Now, saying this, that Turkey supports public of Pakistan in a televised statement at a time when Pakistan is doing cross-border terrorism in India has surely not gone down well with the Indian government and with the Indian people, Akanksha.
All right.
And this is the reason that such
many
campaigns
thanks to you, Siddhant. In fact, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. We are getting in some big breaking inputs coming in, as what we are learning is that the Raksha Mantri Shri Rajnath Singh has met with the CDS and the three services chiefs at the South Block. This is the big breaking input we are bringing to you. Remember, ever since Operation Sindoor was launched, there's been a flurry of meetings in North and South Block. And what we can tell you straight in news coming from the South Block, that the Raksha Mantri has just held a meeting with CDS and the three service chiefs. Akash brings us those breaking inputs. Akash, share with us the agenda of this meet.
Right. So, in fact, the meeting is still going on, Akanksha. This high-level meeting where the Raksha Mantri is basically reviewing the situation. We know that how, in fact, yesterday, there were attempts from Pakistan where small drones were sent, in fact, to different areas. These drones were spotted in Samba, in Udhampur, and in, Amritsar as well. So, we know that how, while there are no attempts at LOC, these drones are still coming from Pakistan. And in such a time, this is very critical to review the overall situation and scenario. And that's why, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh is in fact meeting with all three service chiefs, including CDS, because CDS has played an important role in the entire operation as far as integration is concerned. So we know that how it was an integrated effort, it was a joint effort by all three services, and that's why CDS has played an important role in this meeting. CDS and all three service chiefs are there. Defense Secretary is very much there because he is someone who is closely monitoring the situation, and in fact, as far as production and deployment is concerned, as far as ramping up of the existing advanced equipments and platforms is concerned. So he is someone who is responsible for it. So that's why he is also there. In current scenario, when Operation Sindoor is still on, and Operation Sindoor is the new normal as said by Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday, this meeting is very important. It is happening in South Block, where Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh is chairing the meeting.
Absolutely. And Akash, when we are talking about how there have been fresh attempts made last night, you're looking at critical strategic locations like Samba, even Udhampur, as you rightly mentioned. What is one to make of Pakistan's efforts to continue to do this, given that the DGMAs just had another round of conversations yesterday?
Pakistan possibly trying to make it a new normal for India, but it has been mentioned very much clearly that how we won't be tolerating any sort of violation as far as our borders are concerned. Yes, land violation is not happening, ceasefire violation is not happening, Akanksha, but these drones are very much coming, and that's the reason why it is important to address this specific issue. We have been told that possibly this will be raised in DGMO office connection. That is possibly happening today because Tuesday is the day when offices normally connect. But it will be interesting to see as to how India will take the situation as Pakistan still is sending these drones.
Absolutely. And now that this key security meet is on, what can one expect in terms of the outcome of this key security meet, Akash, given that the situation still remains extremely fragile at the international border and the LOC?
So all the service chiefs are there, and in fact, we have been reporting that how these service chiefs have played a key role in the entire operation, how there was an integration. So possibly, they are discussing the situation with Raksha Mantri and, for the possible guidance and the sort of, instructions from Raksha Mantri. You must be remembering that how Raksha Mantri has been holding, these meetings on a regular basis since 23rd of April, the next day when, the CCS happened. In fact, we know that how twice CCS happened and these important decisions were taken. A meeting with Raksha Mantri is important for some sort of, administrative decision or some sort of direction that is very much required in such a condition, Akanksha.
Absolutely. And at the same time, Akash, now that Prime Minister Modi has outlined a new anti-terror doctrine, should we now expect a re-strategizing for our own forces, where Prime Minister Modi has said that this is now, as far as Operation Sindoor is concerned, this is going to be a new doctrine for our three armed forces? All right, we seem to have lost the connection with Akash, but what we can tell you is that this is a very critical meet taking place after the second round of talks that took place between the DGMOs of India and Pakistan, and yet drones were spotted in Samba, Udhampur, some key strategic military locations, and that is also going to be now part of the agenda in terms of how India can continue to monitor, as we've been highlighting that Operation Sindoor, as already outlined by Prime Minister Modi in his key address last night, has said that there's going to be no space for any tolerance for nuclear blackmail or even any act of terror. Akash is back with us. Akash, to give us a sense of how Operation Sindoor is the beginning of a new doctrine that India is going to uphold against any act of terror, should we now expect a re-strategizing at the international border and the LOC?
Oh yes, it has been categorically mentioned by the sources, and in fact the Prime Minister yesterday, you see, Akanksha, India is not going to tolerate any sort of terror activity within our boundary in Jammu and Kashmir or anywhere else. And that's the reason why, in fact, yesterday Prime Minister mentioned that Operation Sindoor is new normal, where we are going to take action. We have, of course, paused the military action, but we will, of course, be continuing the action in case any sort of violation is happening from Pakistan. And similarly, on similar lines, somewhere DGMO conveyed to Pakistan yesterday that how you will have to stop the firing activities that you are conducting at the borders, and also you'll have to reduce the troops because, we have been seeing that how there is a continuous mobilization at the forward areas from Pakistani side. In fact, they have been moving their artillery. They have been, in fact, there were instances where they have been moving their tanks and in fact, the manpower, of course, but it was categorically mentioned by, Prime Minister, and in fact, the DGMO, conveyed the same message where it was said that, you will have to go for these steps, to make the process, in fact, to make these conversations continue, and in fact, to stabilize and normalize the condition. Also, we know that for the first time, Akanksha, Pakistan has accepted that they have, suffered 11 casualties, 11 deaths,
Right.
from their armed forces. 11 is the number that they have accepted, but Indian side has claimed that, 35 to 40 of their Jawans were killed in the cross-border firing, and specifically in the artillery fire, at the LC, where, we haven't seen any sort of acceptance from Pakistan. Of course, they have been claiming that India has, killed their civilians, while we have maintained that no, we carried out the strikes on your terror camps, terror sites. We have killed more than 100 terrorists and no civilian in targeted. So we have been seeing allegations, we have been seeing rebuttals, we have been seeing narrative war, and at such a time, to analyze the situation, to analyze the current situation, and to see, and in fact, review the current progress and current security scenario. This meeting is very important, where Raksha Mantri is in fact meeting the service chiefs, CDS, and also the Defense Secretary.
Many thanks to you, Akash, for bringing us all those breaking inputs. Now, as Akash and I were discussing, the Directors General of Military Operations of India and Pakistan concluded their last round of talks yesterday, reaffirming the understanding to cease firing and military action along the border. The talks focused on reinforcing the existing ceasefire framework, with both sides highlighting the need for strict adherence to prevent escalatory incidents. This message underscores New Delhi's resolve to safeguard its territorial integrity and maintain peace, while holding Pakistan accountable for any provocations. Pakistan, for its part, has reiterated its commitment to the ceasefire and expressed willingness to cooperate in reducing tensions. After discussion, the DGMOs agreed to troop production from forward areas and border region. Notably, no report of discussion of the Indus Water Treaty suspension has come to the fore so far. All right, Arunima is joining us live on the broadcast. Arunima, taking the point forward with regards to the conversation that took place with the DGMOs yesterday, should we expect another round? Was that the last round that's taking place? And how much can Pakistan be trusted, given that soon after that talk, we did have drones coming from Pakistan spotted in Samba, even Udhampur?
See, weekly talks between the two Director General of Military Operations happen even in peace times. They keep the hotline going with each other. Every time there is an issue that they want to get resolved, because there's a ceasefire agreement also, if there is anything that can breach that agreement, they usually speak to each other. But after the escalation post Pahalgam, things had obviously gone downhill. And in that backdrop, for the Pakistani DGMO's call, last Saturday was quite significant, post which they decided that they're going to touch base again on Monday. Yesterday at around 12 o'clock, the talks were initially scheduled, then postponed till 5 p.m. We were later told by South Bloc that they have decided that there should be no escalation, no shot should be fired, and the status quo that has been maintained over the last 2 days or so, that should be maintained. But even post that, there were some drone sightings that did happen. So India is still concerned, because the situation along the border areas, especially for those districts which are on forward lines, villages which are just on the LC or on the border, they've lost their loved ones. In Poonch, civilians have been killed. One district level official lost his life as well. So there is a lot of concern still when these drones get sighted. And I think the DGMOs will keep working the hotline over the next few days also, to ensure that this kind of concern is negated. If Pakistan is serious about maintaining peace, if Pakistan is serious that the current cessation of hostilities should last, then these drone adventures must stop. I think that will be conveyed by India at some point.
Absolutely. And Arunima, echoing the Prime Minister's sentiment, the Home Minister has also said that through Operation Sindoor, India has raised terrorism in Pakistan's backyard. Having said that, is Operation Sindoor now the new doctrine and the new military response to Pak-sponsored terrorism?
yes, Prime Minister himself has made it clear that we have now changed the threshold. The threshold is now very low. We will not tolerate if there is any terror, conspiracy against India. Pahalgam was the break point. Post Pahalgam, we have seen a change. So far, we were only targeting terrorist launch pads. We saw that post Uri, we saw that post Balakot. This time, because Pak military decided to support the terrorists, support Jaish-e-Mohammed, support Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Pak military also suffered. And I think DGISPR and the Pakistani army establishment has just put out their list of martyrs as well. So they've lost manpower, they've lost assets, they've lost their entire air defense system. India has put up a huge deterrent for Pakistan. Will they now agree to cease hostilities towards India, cease using terrorism as an instrument of foreign policy? That remains to be seen. The agencies here are not very hopeful, but at least Pakistan knows what they will get in return if they carry out a misadventure again, like Pahalgam.
Many thanks to you, Arunima, for bringing us all those latest inputs on that breaking news story. And with that, it's a wrap from my end. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue after a quick break. Griha Atul takes over. Thank you so much for staying with CNN News 18. I'm Griha Atul, and at the top of the broadcast, we are getting you a CNN News 18 mega exclusive. Let's take a look. Now, this is an exclusive input that we are getting from the Pakistani army, as we are learning that it is completely shattered after the attack in Rawalpindi, very, very close to the army headquarters. Pakistan's army general headquarters is vulnerable now after the Indian attack, and Pakistan army strategically is now thinking of relocation to sites with geographic protection like mountains in Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa after recent Indian drone and missile strikes on the Noor Khan Air Base and the Pakistan Air Force Chaklala. Top sources have also revealed to CNN News 18 that Pakistan's Army General Headquarters in Rawalpindi is situated in a densely populated urban area, and its proximity to Islamabad, which is about 10 kilometers away from Islamabad, makes it a high-value target. The base houses of Pakistan's top military leadership, including Army Chief General Asim Munir's residence, are located pretty much there. And as per top Indian government sources, they are claiming that moving Pakistan Army General's headquarters would signal a sign of desperation, also undermine the military's image globally and also in front of India, and that entire relocating of Pakistan's GHQ's command and control systems would take years and billions of dollars, and it is going to be a challenge for the debt-ridden economy of Pakistan. So more challenges that are coming to fore as far as Pakistan is concerned. We had earlier spoken about how, because of the attack on the Noor Khan Air Base, there was a relocation that had begun being planned. And we're talking about the Pak General Asim Munir. He had to remain in a bunker owing to that attack by India. And that Noor Khan Air Base, remember, is very, very close to the GHQ in Rawalpindi. My colleague Siddhant is with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, what does exactly this will make of the situation currently in Pakistan? Because here we're talking about how, even though at the face of it, it is a civilian government in Pakistan, but we do know how much of an impact and influence that the army really command in Pakistan. And this, of course, is undermining that entire significance of the Pakistani army.
Well, yes, that's right. In fact, we have been reporting on it, that how, army calls the shot in Pakistan, and in fact, to retaliate or perhaps to take, respond to India was also Army's decision, Army General Asim Munir's decision. Perhaps, in fact, yesterday, Prime Minister Modi also said that India targeted terror camps in POJK and Pakistan. But Pakistan sided with terrorists, and to shelter those terrorists responded and attempted to attack key Indian defense establishments. So, the entire decision making is happening at the level of Army Chief Asim Munir. Perhaps he is the most powerful man in Pakistan, mastermind of Pulwama terror attack. And in fact, Greha, on the 10th of May, he was the one who called up Secretary of State Marco Rubio asking for his help when India struck 11 of Pakistan's military and air bases, and he realized, he did his own assessment, and he realized that he cannot continue with the combat. But situation of Pakistan is grim. Perhaps the country is running on IMF bailout money. There is lot of anger also against Asim Munir, against Shehbaz Sharif. Shehbaz Sharif is seen as Asim Munir's puppet. And in fact, people wanted to throw Asim Munir out of power. People wanted to throw Shehbaz Sharif out of power. They are very unpopular. But perhaps now what they're doing is that they are doing an image makeover. And in fact, there's a lot of pressure also on DG ISPR. They are not coming up with the exact number of casualties of the army personnel. They are also not giving the exact number of casualty of civilians. Perhaps they are hiding the numbers because they know that the time they will release the numbers, that will have an impact on the image of Army General Asim Munir. So, right now DG ISPR is creating an atmosphere which looks in favor of Army, in favor of Asim Munir. Perhaps Instagram reels celebrating, I don't know what they are celebrating exactly, but that's kind of a perception narrative that they are trying to build by doing propaganda against India, by spreading lies against India. All this is being done to consolidate position of Army General Asim Munir. In fact, within the army also, this is what Manoj Gupta has reported many times, that within the army there is a dissent. Many of the post units in army are crowdfunding and surviving. They don't have money. So even the army,
economic pressure is immense on Pakistan, and now we are seeing how this is a severe blow on the PR also that Pakistan was planning on doing as far as the army is concerned. Let me bring in my special guests who are joining us on the broadcast. Siddhant, I request you to stay on with us. Joining us on the broadcast are Lieutenant General S. Harimohan Iyer, who is a former Chief of Staff of the Northern Command, Indian Army. Also joining us is Major Manik Choli, or a defense expert. Let me begin with, in fact, Lieutenant General Harimohan Iyer. I'd like to understand from you this particular busting of narrative that had already begun from the Indian side. Any kind of fake propaganda that was coming in from that side of the border was aptly called out and busted by India. There was an attack at the Noor Khan Air Base, and we do know how it is just very close to the vicinity of the army headquarters in Pindi in Pakistan, and now we are hearing this buzz of relocation. What does it really mean for Pakistani military, the kind of heft that it so far was posturing that it commands in Pakistan? What happens to all of that?
Thank you for having me on your show. Firstly, I would like to relate it to what has happened in the past. When Balakot happened, there was no evidence in the term that we could not put out before and after images of the strike. And Pakistan managed to convince its populace that the Indian aircrafts never entered Pakistan, and they offloaded some ordnances from their own side which did not land at the place where we had intended to hit. They kept telling the populace that just other than a few crows and a couple of trees, nothing was damaged. They also undertook a movement of journalists to the site after about a month's time, by when they had repaired all the damages that had occurred, and they tried to cover the entire thing up to tell that nothing has happened. And we, I felt, were a little short there, that we could not tell the world what we had actually done. They felt possibly that the same rules apply in 2025. Unfortunately, in the last 6 years, and I will call it a little, I will thank China for it, because the kind of things we are having with China over the last 2 years has made our, what we call as the ISR, the information surveillance and reconnaissance capacities, we have made huge gains in that. And this time when we went in with eyes in the sky. And therefore we were able to put out very clearly what we have hit. And I must say this, that DG ISPR continued with his rant on the first night, saying that nothing of value has been hit. All what has been hit are mosques and, civilian areas, which has caused civilian casualties.
Right.
They never expected us to hit their military installations with this kind of precision. And they never expected us to put out the same in the open media. And now they have realized that the lies that they were trying to propagate will not stand. And when they were trying to put the same lies in terms of their countermeasures, since they don't have that capacity of eyes in the sky as we have,
Yes.
all their claims of having carried out damage in India fell apart. So as it ended on maybe 10th or 11th, when the DGMOs came on board and started showing what we had exactly done, and when people started comparing the DGMO's press conference to the DGISPR's press conference, the difference between what India did and what Pakistan did came out loud and clear. I am sure the population in Pakistan is now understood that the army is not putting out truth in the system.
Absolutely. The missive by Pakistan lacked any amount of evidence, and that's a point fairly made, Lieutenant General. Let me also bring in Major Jolly on this. Major Jolly, Lieutenant General was mentioning about how there was media that was taken at the time of the past attacks between India and Pakistan. This time around, too, that happened when India launched Operation Sindoor, where there was a strategic team of global media that was taken along the line of control to suggest that there is a fair amount of damage that has been inflicted from the Indian side on not terrorist establishments, but on madarsas, on students, on civilian population. At least that was the narrative push that was coming in from Pakistan, something that was amply supported by the Pakistani military. This time we're talking about relocation attempts, a desperation by the military in Pakistan, and they're looking at places like Balochistan. What does one make of this?
So, thanks for inviting me to your show, and good afternoon to General Ayer. What I see is that this is a panic state for them. They are totally in panic. Generally, how do you defend a country? There's a wall of air defense. Your air force is in skies. So since there's no land war happen, so we'll talk about these two. You send your planes, the air defense takes them out, or the air force takes them out, and vice versa. Both of the systems have failed drastically. So they know there is no wall defending us anymore. Imagine the state of the soldier there who knows that Indian missiles or Indian Air Force can come down anytime on us and rain whatever missiles they want, and there is nobody on top of us to defend us. Because land forces depend heavily on the missile cover and the Air Force to stop, defend you. A normal infantry soldier standing in trench cannot fight an aircraft. But once you know that has moved, right? So only thing left for them is to move around, run around, helter-skelter, and find new places to hide, because they know every installation, every cantonment, every location has been mapped by us. And the precision hit that we have given them, we have shown them that doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter how secure you feel, we will hit them, we will hit you whenever we want with whatever you want. And just to add to that these 9 terror attacks which were fired, right, which were taken on, there were 3-4 hits on each, and it was announced that we use scalp missiles and all. There was a report yesterday from Pakistan which said we have taken down 1 scalp missile. If I was Pakistani general, I wouldn't even mention it out of shame. Actually, we fired 50 missiles, and you were able to take out 1. So fine, we grant you that much, but have some shame mentioning that. So we have pure total dominance. If this air defense and air force, if you imagine, it's like 2 boxers in the ring. What India has is Mike Tyson, and what Pakistan has is a novice boxer from street. So they've been getting thrashed every day, and they do not have answer to that now, except for hiding. And the second answer they have is propaganda. When you can't really fight, all you do is shout loudly and start singing and dancing around to show we are all right. So that's all they're doing right now.
Right. Major Jolly, do stay on with us. Also, Lieutenant General Arya, I'll come back to you in just a bit. We have got some more exclusive piece of information for our viewers here on CNN News 18, as we are also now learning that even as Indian-Pakistan conflict raged and subsequently reached a ceasefire, China indulged in a diplomatic balancing act. While it announced support for the ceasefire, Beijing maintained silence on terrorism. China's refusal to acknowledge Pakistan's role in terrorism is a strategy. Top government sources have also revealed that China publicly endorsed the India-Pakistan ceasefire but avoided direct statement on India's demands. It did not make an attempt to hold Pakistan accountable for cross-border terrorism. Finance Minister Wang Yi's calls to Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and also India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval emphasized China's role in facilitating dialogue, as all of this aligns with China's broader image as a global peacemaker, something that US as well is doing. On the other hand, world knows that China has a strategic tilt towards Pakistan, as stability in India and Pakistan is critical for China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is also, remember, important for China-Pakistan economic corridor. My colleague Siddhant is now with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, we have seen, and we were just mentioning about how there were attempts and possibly a thought and conjecture being made on whether or not the army headquarters are going to be shifted to places like Balochistan. We do know how there is a civil war that is also happening, where the BLA is on Pakistani army's neck and also the administration's neck. And one important aspect to note here is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Now, with this posturing that's coming in from China, how does one read this?
Yes, that's right. That's right. In fact, this is what Manoj Gupta has sent. In fact, China's public endorsement of India-Pakistan ceasefire, but avoiding direct statement on India's demands there. China has not made attempts to hold Pakistan accountable for cross-border terrorism so far in its releases. In fact, Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in touch with Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and Mr. Ajit Doval and emphasized on India's role in facilitating dialogue. China wanted to prevent escalation. This aligns with China's broader image as a global peacemaker. Also, China works very hard to get a good global image. Perhaps, whole of the world is right now anti-China. There is grouping, perhaps, where countries don't see China in a good light. So, for the sake of image makeover, perhaps China was making statements for an understanding to be reached between the two sides. Now, by urging both sides to cement the ceasefire momentum, China seeks to project neutrality. On the other hand, world knows China has a strategic tilt towards Pakistan. Stability in India and Pakistan is critical for China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is important for China-Pakistan economic corridor. A conflict between India and Pakistan risks disrupting secret $62 billion infra projects which China has built. In fact, work is still going on. China has consistently shielded Pakistan at multilateral forums like UN Security Council. In fact, China has held, in fact, China had vetoed the proposals made by Indian side to sanction the dreaded terrorists. Perhaps we are aware about China's position. But China always blocked efforts to sanction Pakistan-based terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. Publicly condemning Pakistan terror link would spoil the all-weather China-Pakistan alliance. So on the face, they want to look neutral. They want to look at as a peacemaker. They want
Siddhant, do stay on with us. We are getting an important piece of breaking news now. We are learning that today early morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to the Adampur Air Base. We are putting out these pictures. Remember, this is the second largest Air Force base that the country has. He has been briefed by the Air Force personnel there, and he also interacted with our brave Jawans. That detail has been brought to us by Aman Sharma, our colleague, who's giving us a sense of how important and strategic this visit by the Prime Minister really is. Yes, Aman.
Development, the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, early today morning was at the Adampur Air Base in Punjab, and this is very, very important because Pakistan had tried to target the Adampur Air Base with a ballistic missile, their Fateh missile, and it was spoiled in the air itself. The Adampur Air Base remained completely safe, and this was the trigger. This was the trigger that led India to launch strikes on Pakistani air bases, 11 of them, and destroy many of them, cause heavy damage to the Pakistani air bases. The Prime Minister today early morning, Adampur Air Base is just a bit away from Jalandhar, and the Prime Minister flying to the Adampur Air Base there, interacting with our Air Force warriors, our Air Force pilots, the bravehearts who, have launched this fight against Pakistan, the Prime Minister, and these pictures are very, very telling because these pictures show that the Adampur Air Base was completely unharmed. The Prime Minister has gone there and, taken a stock for himself. He has interacted with the people there and with the Air Force Jawans there. And this is very, very important, as I said, because the Adampur Air Base towards which this missile was launched by Pakistan, the Fateh missile on the night of May 9th. This is what led to Mr. Narendra Modi take the huge decision that Indian Air Force and our BrahMos missiles will be launched towards Pakistan's Air Force bases. We attacked their Rawalpindi Air Base, the Islamabad Air Base, the Lahore Air Base, the Karachi Air Base, the Skardu Air Base. Multiple air bases of Pakistan were attacked, and this is what brought Pakistan to its knees, and we went to the US and then called up India asking for a ceasefire. So I think after the Prime Minister's big nation address to the nation last night, this particular visit now to the Adampur Air Base is extremely significant because it sends out a very strong message by India that, our Pakistan could not harm any of our air bases, all their drones, all their missiles. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, हवा में तिनके की तरह बिखर गए, कोई भी target पे land नहीं हो पाया. While when India launched its response, it not only damaged several of its air bases, it demolished Pakistan's morale. We broke this story yesterday as well that when the attack on the Noor Khan Air Base happened, the Pakistani Army Chief Asim Munir hid in a bunker for almost 2 hours, and now Pakistan is even thinking about changing its headquarters from Rawalpindi. So these are big developments. I think the Prime Minister's visit after his address yesterday also.
Right.
Hailing the valor of our Air Force, our Army and our Navy, and now Prime Minister visiting the very important Adampur Air Base in Punjab.
Right, absolutely. Aman, do stay on with us. We also have our defense correspondent Akash Sharma join us on the broadcast. Akash, this is an important development. Also, posturing a very important one, which is much required for our brave Jawans at the moment, of a sense of reassurance by the Prime Minister. And that's how significant this visit is, because ever since those pictures of the missile was shown in the Dogri village near the Adampur Air Base, there was a lot of conjecture that was being drawn out of it.
Right, Griha, Adampur, air base is one of our frontline air bases for both defensives and offensives. And, Aman was pointing out that how it is in Punjab, very close to the border. And it was time and again, attempted by Pakistan. In fact, they came out with several sort of claims that how they have destroyed several air defenses or radars within, Adampur Air Base. But, it was not true, and it was clarified by the armed forces as well. Adampur is one air base that houses, our MiG-29s and several other fighters. And it is very much available in public that how MiG-29s are operated from Adampur. And this is the reason why possibly Pakistan, was trying to, in fact, target the Adampur Air Base. And in fact, they were not successful though, and this was the time when in retaliation, in fact, India carried out several sort of precision hit to their air bases, including Noor Khan in Rawalpindi. We know that how Adampur is important for Indian Air Force, and Prime Minister visiting there is sending a larger message to all those, personnel who were somewhere, part of this Operation Sindoor. We know that how these visits are important for the sort of motivation that is required for the troops, and Prime Minister has visited, the Adampur Air Base, sending out a larger message to the troops. We have seen that how yesterday he said that Operation Sindoor is new normal. We know that how air activities have happened in the past few days, specifically when, India has in fact, Indian armed forces have destroyed all these air threats that were coming towards, the air bases like Adampur, and there were several sort of claims by Pakistan. Prime Minister has visited Adampur in the morning today, and it is one of the most important bases for Indian armed forces, including several others, very close to Pakistan border, and one of our frontline air bases, Griha.
Absolutely. Do stay on with us, Akash. We also have Payal Mehta join us. Payal, we were just putting out that picture. I request my producers to once again flash that picture of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's, where he is standing next to an aircraft which says, "Why enemy pilots don't sleep well." That's how important and strategic the Adampur Air Base is for the country. A reassuring message there by the Prime Minister, an important one. Was this decided? Was it in the pipeline while he was discussing in the various meetings that he was having at his residence at 7 LK?
The Prime Minister Griha is known to spring in a lot of surprises, and this time around it's no different, given the fact that, he addressed the nation yesterday, gave a message to the nation saying that we are united in our fight against terrorism, and we will teach Pakistan a lesson each time that they try to neutralize us as well. But these visuals must be very, very reassuring, especially for those of our forces who've been, on the ground for the last 14 days plus. They are the ones who've actually been trying to do their best to teach Pakistan a lesson. Every time that Pakistan needled us, remember, every time that Pakistan tried to attack us in the air, it was countered very effectively by our armed forces as well. None of the drones that was thrown in from Pakistan even met with any success. Even though the claim within Pakistan was that they destroyed our air bases and our military equipment, which is none of this is actually true. So obviously the Prime Minister over there going in a way, meeting these personnel, expressing his gratitude on behalf of 140 crore Indians. And those visuals are very, very reassuring. Him standing in the middle of the entire contingent of the Indian Air Force, people over there, he's speaking to them. He can be seen, sharing a laughter with them. Of course, it's a very, very calm and composed country right now, because we know that we have the armed forces who are capable of taking Pakistan on, and in fact seeking a protection no matter what the circumstances really is. And the IAF has, in a way, Griya, shown its power and might in a big way yet again after the strikes that we've seen in Balakot and Uri as well. But this time around, it was a lot about the air fights that were actually there. Dog fights were engaged with. We've seen multiple rounds of drones being fired by Pakistan, India countering it, and the S-400 standing like a literally like a Sudarshan Chakra, dispelling all the army, all the enemy drones, and actually keeping India safe, even if it was very, very troubling skies for at least a couple of days.
Absolutely, and that was the kind of propaganda that came in from Pakistan, where they had claimed that they have ended up destroying an S-400 at the Adampur Air Base, something that was fact-checked here in India, something that has been constantly being done by the Press Information Bureau. And right now, this reassuring visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's at the Adampur Air Base. We also have our colleague Pallavi Ghosh join us on the broadcast. Pallavi, very important visit, and we have to particularly note here on how the Prime Minister is not indulging the opposition in the domestic politics. He's prioritizing what is the need of the hour, that is to be standing in unison with our armed forces in the face of the escalation that had come in from Pakistan, and also as the military level talks continue to happen between India and Pakistan. This important and strategic trip to the Adampur Air Base speaks volumes. Pallavi, are you there with us? Okay, don't seem to have Pallavi, but this is an important visit of Prime Ministers to the Adampur Air Base. Happened today early morning as we put out these pictures, interacting with our brave Jawans, with the army personnel at the Adampur Air Base. Remember, this is the second largest air base that the country boasts of, and that's how significant this trip of the Prime Minister's really is. We continue to have with us our guests, Lieutenant General Hani Mohan Iyer and also Major General Jolly, who are with us on the broadcast. Lieutenant General Iyer, what do you make of this visit by the Prime Minister, especially at the time when the military talks continue between India and Pakistan at the DGMO level? This visit and all of this, particularly after the disinformation campaign from Pakistan.
The Prime Minister has always been visiting the troops in the forward areas regularly. When I was in Northern Command, I have coordinated a couple of his visits, both to the forward areas, and post his visits, when we went and checked with the troops, it made a huge difference in the morale of the troops. So this is the first time when we see a Prime Minister come so regularly, whether it is operations time or otherwise, and meet with troops. I am sure the people who are at Adampur would now get enough energy to carry on with their good work with the Prime Minister's visit to the location. And those people who are also watching it today will also get the same degree of energy. I would also like to add one more thing, which I wanted to say in the earlier part of your discussion.
Sure.
You must understand that we have just used a very small fraction of our capability on Pakistan. If I was to put it, it is in decimals of our capability. We have not yet unleashed our long-range vectors, which we can from the ground forces. Like I said, we have not yet started, and we have already put him on his knees. So we have this tremendous amount of superiority on Pakistan. And as far as China is concerned, I feel it is my assessment that over the last 2 years, China has been trying to find a a way to get out of the imbroglio he's got with us in the northern front. And he has put what he could against India already on ground. And India has countered him with equal amount of response. And China has not been able to force us to disengage at our cost. So therefore, I feel China would also like to evaluate what has happened in the last 3 days, when despite a full-fledged problem happening on our western front, there has been no change in our attitude to the northern front, which means the way Indian forces carried out rebalancing, we are capable of taking on both our adversaries in the manner in which our doctrine has specified for us. And this must be very alarming to China, because I feel China would have tried and hoped that some element of forces that are located opposite him gets pulled out in this current imbroglio with Pakistan. And that has not happened. And it is going to be a major factor in the future.
Right. Major Jolly, would you like to deliberate upon how important, strategic this particular trip of the Prime Minister's really is? Because there was, of course, an attack that happened from the Pakistani side, but there was a greater build-up of that attack and a complete disinformation that came in from the other side of the border regarding this very attack at the Adampur Air Base. And that's why, and that's how reassuring that trip of the Prime Minister's is. He's also been briefed of the security preparedness at India's second largest air force base.
Yeah, thanks. So I would say it is very, the visit of Prime Minister is very critical, because, you know, the entire propaganda from Pakistan was surrounding that we have destroyed the base. What they do is they maybe throw a drone or two in their propaganda, in their news, in their communication, they take it to that level that we somehow totally destroyed the entire base without showing any photograph, without showing any proof. So the visit of Prime Minister would not be on a base which is destroyed, which is under threat, which is effectively under range of enemy. All these things, factors kept in. The proof that our Prime Minister, the leader of the country, standing there, secure, safe, and confident, says a lot about how fake the Pakistani propaganda is. So this is kind of a, you know, when we were in NDA, one of our instructors, Group Captain Naik, who became Air Chief later on, he said one thing: it's hard to be humble when you are perfect in so many ways. Prime Minister Modi is proving us. We have perfection in every part of the defense spectrum. We are not afraid of anyone. And Prime Minister standing there amongst the troops, giving them confidence, telling them, I'm there with you, I'm standing behind you, makes a lot of statements internationally, actually. Not only to the, and it busts their propaganda to the end.
Absolutely. Do stay on with us, Lieutenant General Iyer and Major Jolly. We also have our colleague Pallavi Ghosh back on the broadcast with us. Pallavi, I was earlier asking you about how the Prime Minister so far is prioritizing what is the need of the hour. He's not indulging in the domestic politics. He is standing with the forces, because right now that is the time to, and it is time to do that. And hence this visit to the Adampur Air Base. More on this, please. Don't seem to have Pallavi with us, but Lieutenant General Iyer, you were talking about how this is an important aspect and how India has so far not used very many of its assets. We were also touching upon the kind of disinformation campaign that was really coming in from Pakistani side. One of them, particularly concerning the Adampur Air Base, was on how they have struck the BrahMos system in India. That's how grave the disinformation really is coming from that side of the border. Do you see a rattled Pakistan trying to do that, or has it been usual with Pakistan, and particularly with the AI technology and the help, that entire repurposing of clips that are coming in from India and using it to their advantage has been done in the past also by Pakistan, but something that is even grown because of the kind of tensions that we see on both sides of the border?
Their propaganda talked about destroying our S-400 at Adampur. That has been negated. We have shown in our DGMO briefings yesterday that everything is okay. It is not easy. You know, the problem with him is he is not able to digest that we are able to hit with punity across the length and breadth of his country, and we are able to display it also to the world media that we have done it. And on the other hand, all his efforts, and like Major Jolly said, his attempt to hit Adhampur base with Fateh kind of, which is one of his strategic asset, has also failed. So when he puts everything together, even his nuclear bluff becomes a major question mark, because he may not be able to deliver it, because we have the capacity to knock off all of these before they are effective on ground. And this couple of days of engagement has actually put the entire Pakistan's India doctrine into a question mark.
Yes.
He may have to get back to the drawing board and decide as to what he has to do to even maintain parity with India, leave alone superiority. I believe as of now, somebody was mentioning that, he's looking at relocating his headquarters from Rawalpindi to KPK oblique Balochistan.
Yes.
Well, let's try going across the Indus to the other side. I'm sure the Balochis and the Pathans are waiting for him. They will not let him come anywhere closer. In fact, I don't think he'll be even willing to stay in Rawalpindi. As of now, I look at the Pakistan military and definitely its chief, Asim Munir, in a bit of a tizzy. He doesn't know what has hit him. He doesn't know what. He is taking some very, very, very irrational decisions. The issue of even getting into an abrupt ceasefire indicates that he has lost all options, and at the moment he is wanting for that kind of support. And we should make use of this situation and try and push home the advantage we can through our other diplomatic channels. Now that we have agreed to a kind of I won't call it a ceasefire, like the Prime Minister said. We have paused our operations. We will restart it if necessary, and it should be ensuring that at the end of the whole thing, whatever was the aim of our dealing with Pakistan, especially with the aspect of terror, needs to be fully achieved in this imbroglio, and we should not let him get away like we have let him get away in the past.
Absolutely. In fact, Major Jolly, we are also putting out that tweet of the Prime Minister's, as he has mentioned about his visit to the Adhampur Air Base, where he says that earlier this morning I went to the Air Force station at Adhampur and met our brave air warriors and soldiers. It was a very special experience to be with those who epitomize courage, determination and fearlessness. India is eternally grateful to our armed forces for everything that they do for our nation. Important messaging there by the Prime Minister. It's also important to note here, Major Jolly, that this is frontline briefing that the Prime Minister has received. He's not sitting in bunkers like General Munir in Pakistan. He's standing with the forces.
You're right. There's not even a parameter on which you can compare Prime Minister Modi to, that clown Munir, who's a terrorist by nature. So the stature is totally different. The moment war started, PM has been leading everything. Our DGMOs have been leading everything. Our soldiers have been on front. Their army is scattered. Within few attacks, they were scattered. And I would actually take a moment to talk about how China is getting impacted here.
Sure.
See the systems. See, 80 to 82% of defense import in Pakistan comes from China. When it comes to platforms or weapon systems, it becomes 100% in that particular unit or system. The drastic failure of their systems, right from HQ series in the terms of the air defense, and the JF series in terms of aircrafts, is actually worrisome for China. They can easily blame that. Pakistanis will continue blaming system was not right. The PL-15E they gave us has 100-kilometer less range than the PL-15 original that Chinese have. These things will start. It will cause a strain between China-Pakistan relationship for sure. Because what will happen is Pakistan will try and blame it on China that you are giving us substandard stuff for the money we are giving you, and the China will say we will only give you something because we anyway give you a lot of stuff for free. But the end game is that as a Pakistani soldier or a general or admiral or marshal, they don't have good stuff to fight with. They know that very well now. They don't have air defense that can stop us. They don't have fighter jets that can enter our place. They don't have. And last thing I'll say is India has still a kind of a dragon in its sleeve, which is called Sukhoi with a BrahMos. The day it takes off, nobody in the world has answer to that. And everybody knows that. We have still not used that most probably. But so the superiority, the air superiority or the military superiority, the dominance that we enjoy is not actually towards only Pakistan. It's an indication to China also that this is where we stand. So it's a great place to be, actually.
And now would be a good time, Lieutenant General Iyer, to also talk about the US. There was a fair amount of posturing that came in from the President of the United States that he was the one who brokered this peace between India and Pakistan, something that has been rejected by India. This visit of the Prime Minister first to the Adampur Air Base also is how much of faith he has in the Indian forces and how the conversation between India and Pakistan is only going to be internally, and right now from here on, from the escalation that we've seen post-Operation Sindoor, only militarily.
When I look at President Trump, he possibly was looking to carry out some kind of a diplomatic victory for himself. You know, he had initially said that he will be getting the Russians and Ukrainians to sign a peace deal. He could not do that. Then he said that I will stop the Israel-Hamas war. He could not stop that. So he is trying to find something that tells the world that he is a diplomat, and he's got a diplomatic thing inside him. The talk between the Secretary Rubio or Vice President Vance with Indians cannot be taken as, diplomatic indulgence into this current scenario. They were trying to ascertain what was happening, and I guess India was telling them what our lines are. I am very sure Indians would never have asked Americans to even involve themselves in this current scenario because we had an end state in our own minds. I am sure whenever they had correspondent with us, our response would have been that we did what we did on the 7th. We did very clearly and we enunciated that we don't want to escalate and we stick by it. And at the end, I guess we stuck by it. Whenever an offer came that he doesn't want to fight anymore, we said, fine, we don't want to carry on with this operation. So there is nowhere that there is a deal being stuck by, Americans. Another word about the Chinese I wanted to add. It is not just his air defense system which has taken a beating.
Yes.
The Fateh 1 and Fateh 2, which were launched by Pakistan, are nothing but the Chinese M9 and M11 missiles, which he has, reformatted for himself. They have also failed. So, which shows that even the strategic reach of China, which it plays out so very much in the world order, that they have this so-called rocket force, that has also been bludgeoned by this current 2-day operation of Indo-Pakistan. So China, as Major Jolly put out, is in a real bad shape because neither it has been able to achieve anything about dislocating our forces. Its entire armory, which possibly it was trying to, as I used it yesterday on your show, saying it actually Ukrained Pakistan. It tried to use what Americans did in Ukraine, use and try and show the capacity of its arms in Pakistan, has also failed. I am sure most of these buyers who are looking for cheap options other than the Western options would now think 10 times before buying weapons from China. So that has again become a major embarrassment for him. And the other aspect which comes out loud and clear is Atmanirbharta has shown its value for India.
Absolutely.
Tell the Americans, if they don't want to support us, we are not dependent on them. We are capable of taking care of our own. And I'm sure in the days to come, our own arms market, because we will come out with better systems and possibly more.
We do understand the kind of arms deals and everything that we are getting from countries like US and Russia, particularly also France, if we talk about Rafales. But the indigenous assets that the Indian military boasts of comes nowhere close to most of the countries around the world, and that's something that India must pride itself to have, and that is an important aspect also. But Major Jolly, this point that